Great days and glorious victory! My name is not Spifflemonk, I'm in fact Net Narrator. And I'm not doing a Let's Play because I am narrating the Epstein Files. Yes. So, last time we did a big stream. It was to complete the full deposition of the former US attorney that was in charge of the Epstein case in 2005 to 2008. Which was very controversial as it ended up with Epstein only serving 18 months in prison, being registered as a sex offender, and I believe there was some restitution to the victims as well. But obviously, because this was a very light sentence, there was a lot of controversy there, and indeed Epstein would in fact be reconvicted in 2019 when he took his own life, allegedly. Anyway, as always, I fully intend for this, the proceeds gained from this content and my other Epstein coverage, all of my other Epstein coverage, to go to Speak Out, Act, Reclaim, SOAR, founded by Virginia Goffrey, one of Epstein's victims who bravely came forward, who is now unfortunately deceased. And while the organisation is not currently accepting donations to my knowledge, and I was unable to set up any official fundraiser via YouTube, I will donate the proceedings when possible, or to a similar organisation if not, and proof of this will be released when I do so. Okay, I say that every time, just got to get out of the way, and now we can begin. So there's about 200 files remaining in dataset 7. And once I've done dataset 7, we'll go to dataset 8, and that will take a long time. So I want to get dataset 7 done today, because tomorrow I won't be streaming. I will in fact be celebrating our end of month special with our community calls. So if you are on the Discord, if you're not on the Discord, you should be on the Discord. Get on the Discord. Tomorrow at about this same time, I will be hosting a server-wide call where anyone can come in, anybody can chat, get drunk, do all of that kind of wonderful stuff. And yeah, we are doing that on a Tuesday. Perhaps not the best time for it, but I've done plenty of weekends, plenty of Fridays, because this is the end of month on a different day. I thought, hey, let's see if more people show up on the Tuesday, because sometimes I get complaints that some people can't show up because of work or whatever, and it would be nice to see people and get more people involved. Pretty much, as I say, I've got a very international audience. I've got an audience with a huge diversity of positions that they take up, and obviously time as well, and diversity of time allotments. So hopefully I'll get to see more of you there, even if it is a Tuesday, and if not, well, I'll probably do the next one during the weekend. But regardless, that is then, and this is now. Let's finish dataset 7. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, RE Operation Leap Year, original. Testimony of Special Agent Redacted. Federal Grand Jury 07103, Federal Building, U.S. Courthouse, West Palm Beach, Florida, Tuesday, March 20th, 2007. Appearances, Redacted, Assistant United States Attorney. Helena Josette Jones Parsons, foreperson. Official Reporting Service, LLC, 954-467-8204. Copy 1 of 13. The sworn testimony of Special Agent E. Redacted was taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach Division, Federal Building, U.S. Courthouse, Palm Beach County, State of Florida, on Tuesday, March 20th, 2007. Redacted. Certified Court Reporter and Notary Public, State of Florida, Official Reporting Service, LLC, 527 South Andrews Avenue, Suite 302N, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33301, was authorized to and did report the sworn testimony. Witness enters the grand jury room. The foreperson. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God? The witness. I do. The foreperson. Thank you. Please be seated. Examination. By Redacted. Special Agent Redacted. Could you please state and spell your name for the record? It's Redacted. It's Redacted. Now, Special Agent Redacted, last week, or the last time that we met, we discussed 2 girls, correct? Yes. Who visited Mr. Epstein's house? Yes. And those were Redacted and Redacted? Yes. Did you obtain photographs of those girls? Yes, I did. And do you know approximately when those photographs were taken? They were taken during the same time period that we are investigating, 04 and 05. There may have been a few in 03, but it was within a year's time or 6 months within the activity that we are investigating. Alright. Let me show you what has been marked as Grand Jury Exhibits 1 and 2, and can you tell us what Exhibit 1 is? Exhibit 1 is redacted, and it's a photograph of her with her date of birth listed. And what is Exhibit 2? A photograph of redacted, with her date of birth as well on it. Miss Redacted. And I will just pass those to the grand jury. By Miss Redacted. Now, the last time that we were here, you had described how Redacted had brought Redacted to Mr. Epstein's home? Yes. Did Redacted bring other girls to the Epstein house? Yes, she did. And is one of those girls redacted? Yes. And what is the date of birth? Date of birth of Redacted. She was born redacted. And where did Redacted go to high school? Redacted. And is that the same school that Redacted went to? Yes. And was Redacted ever a student at that school? Yes, she was. Tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, did the Palm Beach Police Department have a chance to interview Redacted? Yes, they did. And what about yourself? And I did as well. Okay. Tell us, if you will, how Redacted started going to Mr. Epstein's house. Redacted was the one who brought Redacted to Mr. Epstein's house. Redacted told Redacted that she may have to remove her clothing and that she could make $200 if she performs a massage for Mr. Epstein. She was also told by Redacted that he may try to touch you, but if you are uncomfortable, just tell him no, and she also said that if Epstein asked her age, she was to say she was 18. Now that information that you just relayed, who provided that information? Redacted. And what did Redacted provided in the interview to me that information. Did Redacted also admit that she brought Redacted to Mr. Epstein's home? Yes. When did this first occur? This occurred in... We believe the first time period was when Redacted was 16. Oh, sorry. And is there any telephone records that show communications between Redacted and Redacted and Redacted and Redacted? Yes. And when are those phone records? Those phone records show up in March of 04 when Redacted will be 16. Let me show what has been marked as Grand Jury Exhibit number 3. And what is Exhibit 3? This is a photograph of Redacted with her date of birth, Redacted. Now, you mentioned that in March of 2004 and April of 2004, there are these records of phone calls, and did Redacted say how old she was when she first went to Mr. Epstein's house? I'm sorry, did Redacted say how old she was? Did she tell you or the police officers how old she was? Yes, I'm sorry, I thought your question was, did she tell Mr. Epstein? She told me that she was 16 when she went to Mr. Epstein's house. Okay, that is consistent with those phone calls? Yes, it is. Okay, now during her first visit with Mr. Epstein, what happened? She went to Mr. Epstein's house. Redacted took her there. Redacted told her she didn't have her driver's license at that time, which she told her... which she told her she got her driver's license when she was 17. Okay. So Redacted drove her to Mr. Epstein's house. She provided Mr. Epstein with a few massages. She remained clothed both times that she gave him a massage. At this time, she kept her clothes on. I think one time she was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Maybe the second time she was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. That he constantly grabbed and pulled at her during the massage, trying to draw her closer to him, but at that time, there was no sexual activity other than the grabbing and pulling. There was no sexual activity that took place in those first couple of massages, and she remained clothed at that time. Now, after those first few massages, was there a break in time before Redacted returns to the Epstein house? Redacted told us that she and Redacted had some kind of a redacted. So there was a time period where she did not go back to Mr. Epstein's house. And did there then come a time when she returned to the Epstein house? Yes. We have phone activity between Redacted and Redacted, beginning in December of 04. And how old was Redacted in December of 04? She had turned 17 at that time. In fact, through the course of the phone records, beginning in December of 04 to October of 2005, we have over 150 phone calls between Redacted, Z, and Redacted at Mr. Epstein's assistant. Oh, Jesus. What did Redacted Z tell you about the activity that occurred when she started returning in late 04? When she started giving Mr. Epstein massages after that break, the massages became much more sexual in nature. Mr. Epstein continued to push, and there were many times when Redacted would perform massages completely nude. Several times she would stay in her underwear with no bra on, but stated to me that many occasions she performed the massages to Mr. Epstein in the nude. In addition to being unclothed, was there other sexual activity? Yes, there was. Redacted, during my interview with Redacted, she became very upset when discussing the sexual activity that took place at that time. She stated that Mr. Epstein had redacted her. It began first by redacted, and then on more than one occasion actually redacted. He would request her to pinch his redacted. He rubbed her redacted as well. She stated that there was a redacted that was redacted as well. Did not penetrate her, but that she described the redacted. And several of the other victims have said that same thing, described it similar to that. And just before I forget, when you testified about redacted, did redacted also report having a redacted? Yes. And again, so the record was clear, when you are talking about these redacted, they are the redacted. We have had some girls just describe them as a redacted. We have had some girls just describe them as a redacted, and then we also had girls describe them as both. Because of the redacted of it, I think some girls are more aware of what a redacted would look like due to their ages. You know, I don't know that everybody knew exactly what a redacted looked like, but they all redacted, and we have actually had that described, and redacted described it as both. A redacted, saying that it was, redacted in nature. Okay, now in addition to using that redacted, was there any other sexual activity? Yes. Several times during the massages, Mr. Epstein would have redacted straddle him while he laid on his stomach, and then he would reach redacted and occasionally... And this is when he was laying on his back, not his stomach. I'm sorry, did I say that? You said on his stomach. He is laying on his back, she is on top of him straddled, and he is reaching redacted. Massive redaction. But that was what was described to us by redacted, sorry. Now, when was redacted first interviewed by the Palm Beach police? She was interviewed October 6th of 2005. And at that time, did she say when her last visit was to Mr. Epstein's house? Yeah, she said October 1st, 2005 was the last massage that she had given Mr. Epstein. Is there any other evidence that was recovered from Mr. Epstein's or his household items that would confirm their statement? We have a massage pad. During the search warrant, several of the massage pads. I don't know if we refer to them at this stage. We may not have. We recovered... Well, I shouldn't say we. The Palm Beach Police Department recovered several massage pads. They were carbon copy massage pads. So we have several of those books from their search warrant, and in there is a message on October 1st confirming Redacted's appointment for the massage, as well as another girl, Redacted. And is there also evidence that Redacted and Redacted actually spoke on October 1st before the massage? We have cell phone calls between Redacted and Redacted, as well as the message which was from Redacted to Jeffrey regarding confirming the appointment for Redacted. But we have a cell phone call, I believe. It was a little bit earlier from Redacted to Redacted. Or maybe it was Redacted to Redacted, but it is definitely between the two of them on that same day. Alright. When Redacted was interviewed by the Palm Beach Police Department, did she describe all of the sexual activity? No, she did not. She did not tell them about the Redacted or the... She didn't tell them about the Redacted. And again, you said that when you brought up... Did you sort of confront her with the idea that more had occurred? I did. And she was very embarrassed about the Redacted. I asked her at one point if Mr. Epstein had given her any gifts, and she got very red in the face and began to tear up, and you could see that she was very embarrassed. So we took a little bit of a break, but then she was able to say that Mr. Epstein had provided her, as a birthday present, a Redacted. So not only was there a Redacted used on her, but at this time, and I think that's kind of what got Redacted talking about the sexual activity, that she was able to tell me that, and she was very, very embarrassed, but that Mr. Epstein had given her for her 18th birthday a Redacted. Now, you mentioned that happened on her 18th birthday? Yes. And was she able to tell you whether Mr. Epstein knew it was her 18th birthday? She stated that Mr. Epstein provided to her on her 18th birthday the Redacted and shortly, well... So before you had said that Redacted had instructed Redacted to tell everyone that she was 18, do you remember that? Yes. But at some point the people in the Epstein household learned that she hadn't turned 18 yet, and her birthday was coming up? Her birthday was coming up. And at some point, was a car provided for Redacted? Yes. In October of 2005, Redacted asked Mr. Epstein if she could borrow one of his cars to go to Orlando, and he stated that... At first he said yes, and then he said he would get her a rental car. So Redacted contacted Redacted a few days later and said that a car had been rented for Redacted, and that the house manager used the company credit card, and Redacted picked up that car, and actually when the police interviewed her on October 6th, which was 5 or 6 days after the last massage, they were able to see that Nissan Sentra that had been rented by Mr. Epstein, Redacted, had that in her possession for at least through January 1st of 2006, and that car was rented by Mr. Epstein for at least that amount of time. Did Redacted describe how the massage appointments would be made? Yes, she did. And how was that? She stated that Redacted, Jeffrey's assistant, would call her and set up appointments, and that sometimes she would call her on her cell phone from New York, from the islands, and say that they were coming into town. Was she available? She would also call Redacted while they were in town to see if she was available for massages, to give massages to Mr. Epstein, and stated that Redacted, who we have identified as Redacted, called her a few times as well to set appointments up. And when those appointments were made, how would Redacted reach Redacted? By phone. Alright. And whether she was in town or out of town, she would call Redacted's cell phone? Yes. Alright. Now, was there any... During the interview with the police department, did the police department ask Redacted about what she discussed with Jeffrey Epstein during the massages? I would have to check the police reports to give specifics on that. Alright. My answer to your question is yes. Okay. And what did she say were some of the topics of discussion? Mr. Epstein asked her questions about herself, asked her if she was a Redacted or that. Jeffrey knew that she was a Redacted and asked questions about her college, about where she was going to school. Redacted is currently going to Redacted, and she had advised Mr. Epstein that she will be attending college at Redacted. So that was her future plan. Yes. So in other words, did Mr. Epstein know that she was in high school at the time? Yes, he did. And the Palm Beach police asked Redacted if Jeffrey knew her age, and Redacted told the Palm Beach Police Department he didn't care what my age was. Now, did Redacted describe either to you or to the police department how she would be paid for those massages? She stated she was paid $200 and that she received anywhere from $200 to $300. With every visit? With each visit. Okay. Did she say who would... Oh, let me redo that. Okay. Did she say who would provide her with that money? She said that Jeffrey paid her at the end of the massage. Alright. You mentioned the gift of the vibrator. Were there other gifts that were given to Redacted? Yes. The time period is unclear, but the Redacted was given to her for her 18th birthday. There were 3 sets of bra and underwear, panties, Victoria's Secret bra and underwear sets that were also given to Redacted as gifts from Mr. Epstein. Now, I know that we talked earlier about the fact that Redacted is the person who brought Redacted to Mr. Epstein's house. Did Redacted ever bring anyone to Mr. Epstein's house? Redacted brought a female by the name of Redacted, and that was a friend of Redacted. And let me show you what has been marked as Grand Jury Exhibit 4. And what is Grand Jury Exhibit 4? It's a photograph of Redacted with a date of birth of Redacted. How old was Redacted when Redacted took her to Mr. Epstein's house? Redacted took her there in the spring of 2005 and was 18 at that time. And Redacted was 18 at that time. Now, can you tell us how Redacted went about bringing Redacted to the house? Redacted told Redacted that she could make some money giving a massage to Mr. Epstein, and Redacted went to Mr. Epstein's house together. The first time that Redacted went there, she did not go upstairs and give him a massage. Redacted was working that day. But in talking to Redacted further, Redacted stated that she probably over the period of time between the spring of 05 and October of 05 performed around 5 to 10 massages for Mr. Epstein. The first few of those, he did not do anything as far as no sexual activity. She would just perform a massage. And did that change over time? Yes, it did. She stated that she performed 2 to 3 massages out of those 5 or 10, and in her underwear and bra only, and that he would push her each time. He would just push her to do more on the third, I believe she stated the 3rd or 4th massage. He told her that she could make more money if she removed her clothing, because she stayed clothed during the first few massages, and she was paid $200 for each of those massages. On the 3rd or 4th massage, Mr. Epstein said that she could make more money if she removed her clothing. So around the 4th or 5th time, she did start taking off her clothing down to her underwear and bra only. And then, what happened when she was at that point of being unclothed? She would perform the massage. He attempted to touch her, but she always would say no. At one point her bra does get undone by Mr. Epstein, but she does keep it up. Now, that was the extent of his touching Redacted. At some point, did he Redacted in front of her? Yes, he did. Not in the very beginning, but throughout this he did. Now, I should tell you that Redacted stated to us that because she was kind of reserved or held back as he made advances towards her, she was able to see Mr. Epstein's Redacted, and that he Redacted. But that he Redacted. That he Redacted. She did not feel that Mr. Epstein liked her very much. But just to sort of compare what Redacted said with what Redacted said, they both said that at the beginning they remained clothed. Yes. And that Mr. Epstein progressively pushed and pushed and pushed for more sexual activity. Yes. Now, what was the period of time that Redacted went to Mr. Epstein's home? Spring of 05 is when Redacted said that she went there and around. You know, The investigation is heating up with Palm Beach, so we know that in September of '05, there was a trash pull done, and in that trash pull, there was a message, and that was found it was stated, it had Redacted's phone number on it, and it stated, for a good time, call Redacted and Redacted. And whose stationery was that? It was on Jeffrey Epstein's stationery. And had Jeffrey Epstein been a Palm Beach resident close to those dates? Yes. Now, is there evidence of telephone calls between Redacted and Redacted? Yes. And how many phone calls have you been able to identify? At this time, there have been around 14 phone calls. Alright, and just to compare that to the number of phone calls with Redacted. With Redacted, there was over 150 phone calls between Redacted and Redacted. And that is sort of consistent with the number of massages that Redacted did versus the number of massages that Redacted did. It is consistent with especially the activity that Redacted was providing Mr. Epstein compared to the activity that Redacted would provide. Thereupon, knocking is heard at the grand jury door. Redacted. Let me just step out for one moment. Redacted exits the grand jury room. Redacted enters the grand jury room. Redacted. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to have to take a break now, and we will be back either next week or the following week. Thank you very much. You are done for the day. Witness was excused. Certificate of Reporter. I, Redacted, certified court reporter and notary public, do certify that the transcript is a true and correct transcription of my stenotype notes of the testimony of Special Agent Redacted, taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach, Florida. Redacted, certified government reporter. Okay. All right. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. RE Operation Leap Year. Testimony of Special Agent Redacted. Federal Grand Jury 07 to 103. Federal Building, U.S. Courthouse, West Palm Beach, Florida. Tuesday, April 24, 2007. Appearances. Redacted. Assistant United States Attorney. Redacted. Foreperson. The sworn testimony of Special Agent Redacted was taken before the Federal Grand Jury. West Palm Beach Division, Federal Building, U.S. Courthouse, Palm Beach County, State of Florida, on Tuesday, April 24, 2007. Paula E. Angelocchi, Certified Court Reporter and Notary Public, State of Florida, Official Reporting Service, LLC, Redacted, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33301, was authorized to and did report the sworn testimony. Witness enters the grand jury room. The foreperson. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. The witness. I do. The foreperson. Thank you. Please be seated. Examination. By Redacted. Special Agent Redacted, would you just remind the grand jurors who you are and who you work for? My name is Redacted, and I am a special agent with the FBI, and I work here in Palm Beach. Special Agent Redacted, can you tell the grand jurors who will be appearing before them this afternoon? One of our victims, Redacted, who was a minor at the time that she met Mr. Epstein. And have you previously testified about Redacted? Yes, I have. Did you attempt to interview her? She's going to be coming in, and she is not a minor anymore, so what is her full name? Her name is Redacted, and I did attempt to interview Redacted, and Redacted was interviewed by Palm Beach Police Department, and because of the statement she provided to the police department, she felt as if she needed a lawyer. So when I attempted to interview her, we ended up going through her lawyer. And just so the grand jury has a little bit of background, the interview with the Palm Beach Police Department was quite some time ago? Yes, it was, in the fall of '05. And when Ms. Redacted started that conversation with the police, she was very forthcoming? Yes, she was. Fully cooperative? Yes. And what happened in the middle of that interview with the police? The police just let Redacted know that she could be charged because Redacted brought some of the girls to Mr. Epstein and the police. She was very cooperative, but the police at that point had to let Redacted know that what she had done, that she could be facing charges. And that was after they had told her earlier that she didn't need an attorney present, correct? Exactly. Okay, so this happens to her with the Palm Beach Police Department, and did the Palm Beach Police actually present or propose charging Redacted? They did get a probable cause affidavit against Redacted. And is that why Ms. Redacted and her attorney were concerned about her testimony here? Yes. Now, was a subpoena issued for Ms. Redacted on behalf of this grand jury? Yes, it was. And before Miss Redacted would comply with that, did her attorney request some sort of order? Yes. And what did he ask for? He asked for immunity for Redacted. And let me show you the order. That is a sealed order in these grand jury proceedings. Now, the immunity that has been provided for Miss Redacted keeps the statements that are made here from being used against her? Yes, it does. It doesn't. If she commits perjury and she lies to the grand jury, can she still be charged? Yes, she can. Okay, could you read that? I know it is only 2 pages. Sealed order. On application of the United States Attorneys for the Southern District of Florida, and it appearing to the satisfaction of the court that Redacted has been called to testify and to provide other information before the United States District Court, the Southern District of Florida, including a grand jury impaneled therein. And number 2, that in a judgment of that said United States Attorneys, Redacted has refused to testify and provide other information on the basis of her privilege against self-incrimination. And that number 3, in the judgment of the United States Attorneys, the testimony and other information from Redacted made necessary to the public interest. And number 4, that the aforesaid application has been made with the approval of the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice, or a duly designated Acting Assistant Attorney General pursuant to the authority vested in him by Title 18, United States Code, Section 6003, and Title 28, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 0.175 and 0.132. Small e. Now, therefore, it is ordered pursuant to Title 18, United States Code, Section 6002, that Redacted give testimony and provide other information which she refuses to give or to provide on the basis of her privilege against self-incrimination as to all matters about which she may be interrogated before said United States District Court, including a grand jury impaneled therein, as well as any subsequent proceedings or trial. However, no testimony or other information compelled under this order, or any information directly or indirectly derived from such testimony, or other information, may be used against Redacted in any criminal case except a prosecution for perjury, giving a false statement, or otherwise failing to comply with this order. It is further ordered that this order shall be sealed in accordance with said Federal Regulations Criminal. By Redacted. Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure. Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure. Is abbreviated. 6. Little e 6, except that a copy of this order shall be provided to counsel for the United States who may disclose the existence of the order to members of the grand jury, to the witness, to the counsel for the witness, and to law enforcement officers engaged in the investigation pending before the grand jury. Those persons may review the order, but may not retain a copy of the order, nor may it disclose the existence of the order to any others. Done and ordered the 16th day of April 2007 at West Palm Beach, Florida. United States District Judge Donald M. Middlebrook, Redacted, AUSA. Alright, so has this document been shown to counsel for Miss Redacted? Yes, it has. And to Miss Redacted? Yes. And will Miss Redacted be here this afternoon? Yes, she will. Have you had a chance to sit with her? Yes, we have. And she has been very forthcoming? She's very cooperative. Okay. Miss Redacted. I don't have any further questions for the witness. Do you have any questions? Alright, seeing no questions, you are excused, and I think that right now you are set to come back at 1:15. How does 1:30 sound? Is that alright? The foreperson. Fine. Witness was excused. Certificate of Reporter. I, Paula E. Angelocchi, certified court reporter and notary public, do certify that the transcript is a true and correct transcription of my stenotype notes of the testimony of Special Agent Redacted taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach, Florida. Paula E. Angelocchi, CSR number 4869, certified court reporter. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, West Palm Beach. In RE Operation Leap Year. Grand Jury number 07-103, choose to WPB. West Palm Beach, Florida, Tuesday, May 15, 2007. Testimony of Redacted. Appearance, Redacted, Assistant U.S. Attorney, Nancy Siegel, Court Reporter. Official Reporting Service, Redacted. Proceedings. The sworn testimony of Redacted was taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach Division, 701 Clementis Street, West Palm Beach County, State of Florida, on the 15th day of May 2007. Nancy Siegel, registered merit reporter and notary public, was authorized to and did report the sworn testimony. Thereupon, Redacted, a witness of lawful age, having been first duly sworn by the foreperson, testified on her oath as follows. By Redacted. Good morning, Special Agent. Could you state and spell your name for the record? Special Agent Redacted. And with whom do you work? The FBI here in West Palm Beach. And are you here today on the continuing investigation known as Operation Leap Year? Yes, I am. And you are one of the case agents on this investigation, correct? Yes, I am. The last time you were here, we were discussing the evidence supporting various overt acts and charges related to Jane Doe's number 1 and 2. Yes. Today we are going to start with Jane Doe number 3. Can you tell the grand jury who that is and summarize briefly your previous testimony about her? Jane Doe number 3 is redacted. And she first started. We have first phone contact with redacted starting in December of 2004. Redacted would have been 16 or 17 at that time. Let me do the math real quick. She would have been 16. I'm sorry. She would have been at that time 17. Let's get it right. So she started phone contact. Redacted started calling her in September of 2004. From testimony, we know that Redacted went there earlier. Much earlier. Redacted, which was Jane Doe number 4, you will hear about next, they were good friends and they both went in the spring of 04, prior to Redacted's 17th birthday. So Redacted did start giving Mr. Epstein massages when she was 16. She performed a few massages for Mr. Epstein and then took kind of a little bit of a break. The sexual activity that occurred with Mr. Epstein when Redacted was under the age of 18 included heavy redactions. She was given gifts by Mr. Epstein. She was given a redacted. She was given Victoria's Secret underwear. She was also given a car that Mr. Epstein rented for her for a number of months. She was paid $200 by Mr. Epstein, and Redacted was the one that primarily called Redacted to set up appointments, and as you can see, that began in December of 04. Redacted was also one of Mr. Epstein's favourites, according to several of the other girls. Just so the grand jury has an idea, how does that translate into the number of phone calls between Redacted and Redacted that you were able to calculate? Redacted called her. I guess calls between the two of them ranged around 125 phone calls from December 6, 2004 until October 2005. And just briefly, can you remind the grand jury, did Redacted ever tell Mr. Epstein her age? No, they did not ever discuss. She did not tell him how old she was, but she did tell him where she planned on going to school, and that she was in Redacted. She stated that when it came to her age, that Mr. Epstein didn't care. As I mentioned earlier, Redacted and Redacted were very good friends, and Redacted would talk about Redacted, and Mr. Epstein would ask questions about Redacted when Redacted was providing massages. And as we will talk about when we talk about Jane Doe number 4, which is Redacted, she told Mr. Epstein that she was a junior in high school, and that Redacted and her were in the Redacted, and that they were Redacted. And Redacted told us that at one point, Redacted had come to her because she had slipped about prom, and she was worried because Epstein was supposed to think she was 18, and she had talked about the prom, and Redacted said she never heard anything else about it, and they never brought it up. Because, according to Redacted, Mr. Epstein didn't care, really, how old the girls were. Exactly. And she never mentioned he asked her for her age, or asked for any form of identification, to show whether she was or was not over 18. No. Now, if you could turn to the proposed indictment, and if I could ask you to look at Overt Act number 59. We had a little knock at the door. Do you want me to get it? Yes. Thereupon there was a brief pause. I will let you see a picture of Jane Doe number 4. Redacted, who we were talking about earlier, and this is Redacted. Is there any place you want to put it right down here at the front? Right down here in front, I should say. And just so the record is clear, those are the photographs that we showed to the grand jury last week? Yes, it is. So if you could turn to Overt Act number 59, which appears on page 12, and if you could explain to the grand jury the evidence we have related to that phone call, or phone calls on December 6, 2004. On December 6, 2004, a review of the phone records indicate that there was telephonic phone contact between the numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted, as well as we have evidence with Redacted statements of the phone calls being made to her by Redacted. And Overt Act number 60. A review of the phone records indicate telephonic contact between the numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted on December 12, 2004. And Overt Act number 64. A review of the phone records indicate telephonic contact between numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted on December 14, 2004. And just so that it is clear to the grand jury, when the overt acts say that the defendant Redacted made one or more telephone calls, that means that the call is originating from Redacted's phone, is that correct? Yes, it does. And if you could turn to Overt Act number 71. On December 20th, a review of the phone records indicate that there was telephonic contact between Redacted and Redacted. And Overt Act number 79. On January 6, 2005, a review of phone records indicate there was telephone contact between numbers belonging to redacted and redacted. And number 83. On January 14, 2005, a review of the phone records indicate telephonic contact between numbers belonging to redacted and redacted. And with respect to the other overt acts related to the phone calls, which would be 94, 100, 102, 104, 112, 118, 125, 129, and 132, is the evidence the same? Yes, in or about each of those dates, a review of the phone records indicated telephonic contact between the numbers belonging to redacted and redacted, as well as redacted statements. Now, if I could direct your attention to count number 7, which appears on page 26 of the draft indictment, that is a charge of indictment of a minor during the period of December 6, 2004 through June 2nd of 2005. Could you summarize for the grand jury the evidence related to that count? On or about these days, the facility of interstate commerce, the telephone, specifically redacted and redacted, were utilized to set up appointments, massage appointments for Epstein. During the massage, and on more than one occasion, Epstein redacted. He used a redacted, and Epstein directed redacted to straddle him, while he redacted and redacted. He would redacted. He would redacted. As she was straddling him, there was redacted, though. He touched redacted's breasts. He would redacted. He paid redacted on multiple occasions $200. Both redacted and Jeffrey Epstein have escorted redacted upstairs for these massages, and Mr. Epstein gave redacted a redacted Victoria's Secret bra and panty sets, and he also rented her a car for several months. And just so that it is clear, you mentioned he paid her on several occasions. He paid her every time she performed these lewd acts, correct? Yes, $200. And redacted is listed as a defendant, with respect to Jane Doe number 3 as well. And can you explain to the grand jury a little bit more about who redacted is, and why she is charged in this count? Redacted is one of Mr. Epstein's personal assistants as well, and she made appointments for him for these massages. We have contact between redacted's phone and redacted's phone. She contacted redacted approximately 25 times. And that's why she is also charged with someone who is either an aider or abettor, or a co-conspirator with respect to this. Yes. Okay. If I could direct your attention to count number 32, which appears on page 30, and count number 32. I got 32. What is the evidence related to? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you ask me the question. I thought you said refer to it. The evidence is, we have flight records that indicate on December 13, 2004, Epstein traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulf Stream. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before, or the day of travel. We also have the sexual contact between Jeffrey Epstein and redacted, as we described earlier in count 7. And just to refresh the recollection of the grand jury, the Gulfstream aircraft is one owned by Hyperion. Airing. And when you said that there was telephone contact, you recall that in Overt Act number 60 that we discussed phone calls on December 12th, correct? We did. Okay. If I could direct you to count number 35, and if you could tell the grand jury about the evidence according to that count. Again, we have flight records that indicate that on January 6th, 2005, Epstein traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulfstream again. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before, the day of that travel. We also talked about the sexual contact between Jeffrey and redacted, between Epstein and redacted. And can you tell us again what aircraft they flew on January 6th? That was the Gulfstream, which was owned by Hyperion Air Inc. Okay. If I could direct you to count 36, and again, if you could summarize that evidence. We have flight records that indicate that on January 14, 2005, Epstein, redacted and redacted, traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727 that Mr. Epstein owns. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before, the day of that travel, as well as we have the sexual contact between Jeffrey Epstein and redacted, as we described earlier, and I will tell you that redacted is redacted, Mr. Epstein's personal assistant, and redacted is redacted. We talked about just a few minutes ago. Mr. Epstein, another of Mr. Epstein's personal assistants. And if I could direct your attention to count 37 and ask you to summarize the evidence related to that count. We have flight records that indicate that on February 3rd, 2005, Mr. Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel, and we have the sexual contact between Epstein and redacted. And if I could direct your attention to count number 38. In count number 38, we have flight records that indicate on February 10th, 2005, Mr. Epstein, redacted, and redacted, and traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulf Stream. There was telephone contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel. We also have the sexual contact between Mr. Epstein and Redacted. Now, I'm sorry. On count number 38, which airline were they on? They were on the Gulfstream. Can I ask you to double check that? There was an inconsistency between the chart and the indictment, or we can save that for a later date. It is right here. I will mark that we need to check on count number 38. I have the flight manifest with me if you want me to check. I don't know if you want me to do that now. Yes, if you don't mind. Thereupon, there was a brief pause. Ah, both my cats are sleeping very, very happily. You won't be able to see, but down there. That's good. They're behaving for a change. Thereupon, there was a brief pause. In count 38, flight records indicate on February 10, 2005 that Mr. Epstein, redacted, and redacted, were in fact on the Boeing 727. So the draft indictment contains the correct information? Yes, it does. What company owns the Boeing 727? JEGE Inc., Incorporated. And if I could take you to count number 39. Evidence shows through flight records that on February 21st, 2005, Epstein, redacted, and redacted, traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel, and there was also the sexual conduct between Epstein and redacted. And if I could take you to count number 40, please. We have flight records that indicate on February 24, 2005, Epstein, redacted, traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before, the day of travel, and there was sexual conduct between Jeffrey Epstein and redacted, as we described earlier in count 7. And if you could do count 42. We have evidence that shows flight records. Now, flight records indicate that on March 18, 2005, Epstein traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. There was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day of or the day before travel. We have the sexual conduct between Mr. Epstein and redacted. And just referring to that count, redacted is named, although she was not on the flight that day. Is that correct? Yes. And you said that she made the telephone calls with redacted, correct? Yes. And we also have interviewed Mr. Epstein's pilots, and one of the pilots indicated that redacted was the one that arranged all of Mr. Epstein's travel arrangements, and so she is responsible for making his arrangements to travel to Palm Beach, as well as call the girls for the appointments. If I could take you to count number 43, please. Flight records indicate that on March 31st, 2005, Mr. Epstein traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. There was telephonic contact between redacted, and redacted the day before or the day of travel. We also have the sexual conduct between Epstein as redacted described earlier in count 7. Again, in count 44, what is the evidence related to that? Flight records indicate that on April 8th, 2005, Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulfstream, and there was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted on the day before or the day of travel. We also have the sexual conduct between Mr. Epstein and redacted. And if you could go through 45, 46, and 47. In count 45, we have flight records that indicate on April 27, 2005, Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulfstream. There was telephone contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel, and we have the sexual conduct between Jeffrey and redacted. In count 46, we have flight records that indicate that on May 6, 2005, Epstein, redacted, and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulfstream. We also have telephonic contact between redacted, and redacted either the day before or the day of travel, and we have the sexual conduct between Epstein and redacted. And in count 47, on May 19, 2005, we have flight records that indicate Epstein, redacted, and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulfstream, and we have telephone contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel. We also have the sexual conduct between Epstein and redacted as described in the earlier count 7. Now, if I could direct your attention to count number 51, which appears on page 33. That is the sex trafficking of a minor involving Jane Doe number 3, and could you briefly summarize that, the evidence related to that? As we discussed earlier in count 7, I told you guys about the sexual conduct between Epstein and redacted. The monies that were paid to redacted by Mr. Epstein, the phone activity we discussed between redacted and redacted. It began in December. And we also have phone calls beginning in January from redacted to redacted. At that time, redacted was 17 years of age. And we also have statements from redacted regarding Mr. Epstein's knowledge of their ages. And with respect to the effect on interstate commerce related to that count, We have both the telephone calls, correct? Yes. As well as Mr. Epstein actually travelling in interstate commerce to engage in this activity, correct? Yes, we do. Is there anything else that you would like to mention about Jane Doe number 3? Not at this time, no. If I could direct you to Jane Doe number 4, and if you could summarise for the grand jury the information related to Jane Doe number 4's activities. Jane Doe number 4 is redacted. I think you wanted their birth dates. Her birth date is redacted. She was 16 years old and attended redacted. We first have contact through phone calls from redacted to redacted on April 25, 2004, which indicates and shows that redacted was clearly 16 years of age when she started going to Mr. Epstein's and performing massages for Mr. Epstein. Redacted, our Jane Doe number 1, was the one who recruited redacted. She basically told redacted that she could make $200, she needed to dress cute, he might try to touch you, but if you feel uncomfortable, just let him know and he will stop. And the first massage that redacted did, he repeatedly told redacted, and I mentioned this to you in the last grand jury session, she was very shy, and he would repeatedly tell her not to be shy, that she didn't have to be so shy. Epstein asked her to remove her clothing, and she told him no, and throughout the massage he would repeatedly grab at her. Redacted, he did redacted through this first massage, and pulled her clothes. She would pull away, and she was paid $200 for that. Upon leaving the first massage, Mr. Epstein told redacted that if redacted was willing to do more, she would get paid more. He also informed redacted that if she would bring her pretty friends, he would also pay her for bringing her pretty friends. He told redacted that redacted would get her phone number. Redacted says that she performed 3 to 4 massages for Mr. Epstein. We have, with redacted, approximately 100 phone calls between redacted and redacted. When I interviewed redacted, she became very upset when we got to the sexual massages that she did for Mr. Epstein. At this point, this is as much as we know at this point of what occurred with Mr. Epstein and redacted. She did 3 to 4 massages, and those last massages, they became more sexual in nature. He asked her again to remove her clothing. This time she took her shirt off. He asked her to take her bra off. She said no. He again would redacted. He did continue redacted. This time she redacted. He continued to compliment her, tell her she had a nice body and that she was pretty. Redacted says that he was very nice and engaged her in conversation. Asked her, if she had a boyfriend. In the last massage she discusses with me, and this massage Mr. Epstein told her to stop being shy and asked her to take her clothes off, and redacted said that she had a boyfriend and she didn't feel comfortable taking her clothes off, and he told her, you should know what to expect by now when you come here, and he joked on her pants as to jerk them down. So she did on this last massage get down to her bra and underwear. She describes his tone at this time being frustrated and irritated. She stayed in her bra and underwear, but during the massage he grabbed her bra and pulled it down and redacted. He had instructed her to redacted while she was massaging his chest. He tried to grab her all over. He knew that she was upset with this massage. At one point Mr. Epstein asked if she had had sex with her boyfriend. Redacted informed him that she is still a virgin, and he responds, "What, you don't like sex?" And that's pretty much the way that last massage went. Now, Special Agent Redacted, just to interrupt you, you mentioned that Jane Doe number 4 became very upset as you were asking her about the massages, correct? Yes. And when she was describing this incident, with him grabbing at her breast and trying to pull her pants down, and instructing her to remove her pants, correct? Yes. You were taught last week about the expert that you had spoken with about interviewing victims of these types of offences. Right. And you had told us about how a victim may be reticent at first to tell the entire story until a rapport is built. Right. Can you tell the grand jury your impressions of your interview with Redacted? She became so visibly upset, and a lot of the girls are embarrassed at what took place, but when she talked about the last massage and him grabbing her breasts and fondling her breasts, she was in tears, and we stopped the massage and we calmed her down. And trying to go back there was just too difficult. I could not get her back to discussing anything further that had taken place. I have since talked to Redacted again, and I feel there is more there, but I just don't think she is ready to disclose what took place. So, based upon the more than 60 telephone calls, as well as approximately 100 telephone calls, and your conversations with Redacted, you think there is probably more than 4 massages that happened. Yes, I do. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss with the grand jury? Just, as I stated in the beginning of those massages, they engaged in conversation, and throughout that conversation, she did inform Mr. Epstein that she was a junior in high school, and again, she is one of the girls that talks about Redacted being Mr. Epstein's favourite. So because Mr. Epstein knew they were friends, they would engage in conversation about Redacted, and Redacted would mention they were in the Redacted, and they would discuss the friendship they had between the two girls with Mr. Epstein, and I think that's it. Alright. If we could turn to the post-indictment to overt act number 4, which appears on page number 5. Did you obtain telephone records for Jane Doe number 4? Yes. And did you compare those with the phone records of Redacted and others? Yes, I did. And can you tell us with respect to overt act number 4 what evidence you have related to that? A review of the phone records indicate that there was telephonic contact between the numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted, as well as Redacted statements that Redacted would call her to make appointments. And if we could go through overt acts 6, 8, 9, and 11, all of which appear on page 6. A review of the phone records on May 3rd, 2004, May 14th, 2004, May 20th, 2004, and June 3rd, 2004. A record of these phone records indicate that there was telephonic contact between numbers belonging to Redacted, and Redacted, as well as Redacted statements. If I could take you to overt acts 14, 15, and 19, which appear on page 7. A review of the phone records on June 11th, 2004, June 20th, 2004, and July 10th, 2004. They indicate that there was telephonic contact between the numbers belonging to Redacted, and Redacted. And if I could ask you to turn to page 8, and if you could address overt acts 24 and 25. A review of the phone records on July 18th, 2004, and July 22nd, 2004. A review of Redacted and Redacted phone records indicate there was telephonic contact belonging to both of them, as well as Redacted statements that Redacted would arrange appointments with her. If I could take you to page 9 of the draft proposed indictment and ask about overt acts 29 and 30. A review of the phone records indicate there was telephonic contact on July 22nd, 2004 and August 4th, 2004 between numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted, as well as Redacted statements. If I could take you to page 10 of the draft proposed indictment and ask you about overt acts 37 and 43. A review of phone records indicate telephonic contact on August 25th, 2004 and October 3rd, 2004 between numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted. And if you could turn to page 11 of the draft proposed indictment, and if you would address overt acts 47 and 48. A review of the phone records indicate telephonic contact on October 30th, 2004 and November 4th, 2004 between numbers belonging to Redacted and Redacted, as well as Redacted statements. Okay, and if you could go to page 14 of the draft proposed indictment and address overt act number 77. A review of phone records indicate that on January 4th, 2005 there was telephonic contact between Redacted and Redacted, as well as Redacted statements. I'm sorry, if you could turn to page 16 of the draft proposed indictment and address overt act number 87. A review of the phone records indicate that on January 22nd, 2005, there was a telephonic phone contact between numbers belonging to Redacted, and I believe I said on January 22nd, 2005. Okay, and if you could go to page 17 and address overt act number 101. On February 14, 2005, a review of the phone records indicate that there was telephonic contact on that day between numbers belonging to Redacted, as well as Redacted statements. If you could turn to pages 18 and 19, and if you would address overt acts 106, 114, and 116. A review of the phone records indicate that there was a telephonic contact between Redacted and Redacted on February 24th, 2005, as well as Redacted statements. Overt act number 114 says on March 18, 2005, Defendant Redacted prepared a written message to Defendant Epstein regarding Jane Doe number 4. Could you tell the grand jury what the evidence is related to that? We have a review of the message pads that were recovered during this search warrant that the state served that showed that Redacted wrote a message to Epstein regarding Redacted, and that was done on March 18th, 2005. Do you happen to remember what the message said? I have those with me. Would you mind getting them out? Do you want to mark it? If you could just read it to the grand jury. It is a message written by Redacted for Jeffrey on 3rd, 18th, 2005, and it looks like 4:21 p.m. And the message reads, "Is it okay if Redacted will come at 5?" And there was a question mark. And if I could direct you to overt act number 116, what the evidence is related to that. A review of the phone records on March 29, 2005 indicate that there was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted, as well as her redacted statements. And if I could take you to overt act number 127, which is on page 20. A review of phone records on April 11, 2005 indicate that there was telephonic phone contact between the numbers belonging to redacted and redacted, as well as redacted statements. Now, if you could go to count number 6, which alleges that between April 25, 2004 and June 29, 2005, Jeffrey Epstein redacted, enticed Jane Doe number 4 to engage in sexual activity or prostitution. On or about these days, we have a facility of interstate commerce, specifically the telephones, redacted, and redacted, which we utilized to set up, arrange massage appointments for Epstein. We have redacted taking redacted upstairs to set up the massage table. She would set the massage table up, as well as set up the lotions and the oils. We have, during those messages, Epstein would grab and pull redacted closer to him as he redacted. He repeatedly would ask her to remove her clothing, wearing her bra and underwear. Epstein would pull down her bra and redacted. Redacted attempted to redacted at one point, but she stopped him. Or redacted. He attempted to redacted at one point, but she stopped him. He redacted. She believes that redacted. He paid her $200. He told her that he would pay her to bring her pretty friends, and would pay her more if she would do more. And just so that this is clear to the grand jury, June 29th of 2005 is the day before Jane Doe number 4 turned 18, is that correct? Yes. So was there activity that continued past her 18th birthday? Yes. If I could direct you to count number 17, which appears on page 28, and tell us about the evidence related to that. We have evidence through flight records that indicate on May 21st, 2004, that Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulf Stream. We have telephonic contact between redacted and redacted, the day before or the day of travel, and we have the sexual contact between Epstein and redacted, as we described earlier in count 8. And if you could go through counts 18 and 19. We have flight records that indicate on June 4th, 2004, Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulf Stream. We have telephone contact between redacted and redacted the day before, the day of travel. We have sexual contact between Mr. Epstein and redacted, as discussed earlier. We have also count 19 on June 20th, 2004. We have flight records that indicate that Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. We have the telephone contact between redacted and redacted the day before, the day of travel. We also have the sexual contact between Jeffrey and redacted, as we described earlier, in count 8. Could you do the same for counts 22 and 23, please? Count 22, we have flight records that indicate on July 22nd, 2004, Epstein, redacted, traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. We have the telephonic phone contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel. We also have the sexual contact between Jeffrey Epstein and redacted, as we described earlier. And count 23, we have flight records that indicate on August 6, 2004, Epstein and redacted traveled to Palm Beach County on the Boeing 727. We have telephonic contact between redacted and redacted 2 days prior to Epstein and redacted traveling to Palm Beach County. We have sexual contact between Jeffrey Epstein and redacted, as we described earlier. And if you could do the same for count number 28, please. Count number 28, we have flight records that indicate on November 5th, 2004, Epstein, redacted, traveled to Palm Beach County on the Gulf Stream. We have telephonic contact between redacted and redacted the day before or the day of travel. We have the sexual contact between Epstein and redacted. And if I could direct you to count number 35, you testified previously about the people who were aboard the plane. Was there also telephone contact on shortly before the flight on January 6th, 2005, between redacted and this Jane Doe? Yes, 2 days before. And if you look at count number 40, again, you had previously told us about who was on board the plane. Can you tell us whether there was also telephone contact shortly before that? There was telephone contact the day of or the day before. Alright, between who and who? Between redacted and redacted. Okay. And if you could look at count 43, you also had testified previously about who was aboard the plane on that day. Was there also telephone contact between Jane Doe... Was there also telephone contact between Jane Doe number 4? Jane Doe number 4 and redacted? Yes, 2 days before. And if I could direct you to count number 52, which is the sex trafficking offence, and if you could summarise again for the grand jury the evidence related to that. We discussed in count 8 the sexual conduct that occurred between redacted and Epstein during the massages that took place. We talked about the money that was paid to her by Mr. Epstein, and the offer of more money if she would do more, as well as if she would bring her friends. Through redacted statements, we have also that Redacted has paid her in the past for bringing a friend. We have the phone activity between Redacted and Redacted, which started in April 2004. We know Redacted was 16 at the time. We also have phone activity between Redacted and Redacted beginning in the spring of 2005 when Redacted would be 17, with the statements of Redacted and Redacted. The knowledge that Mr. Epstein knew their age, and we have gone through that regarding Redacted, informing Mr. Epstein that she was a junior in high school, that she was Redacted, and then Redacted statements that Redacted was concerned because she was discussing prom with Mr. Epstein, and both girls at that time of the phone calls were under the age of 18. Just again, so it is clear for the grand jury, neither Redacted nor Redacted ever specifically said, "Hey, Jeffrey, I am 17, but they provided information that should have caused him to try to figure out whether in fact they were adults? Yes. Any questions about Jane Doe number 4 before we turn to Jane Doe number 5? Yes, Redacted. A grand juror. I have to say something here. If it is a stupid question, forgive me if it is. But, no. From what I heard, maybe I heard wrong, there were 3 to 4 massages that Jane Doe, Redacted or Redacted said that she had, and you enumerated quite a few sexual contact. How do you know about this? How do you have records? How do you know they were sexual contact? The witness. Through interviewing Redacted. A grand juror. She said she only had 3 to 4 massages. The grand juror. Her question is more like there is 20 phone calls. The grand juror. There is tons of them. The witness. Exactly. That is what we were discussing earlier when we mentioned that there is more than what Redacted is willing to admit at this time. The grand juror. I got it. So she said she only had 3 to 4. The grand juror. There is 100 phone calls. The grand juror. You said you found out through Redacted. I'm a little bit confused about that. The witness. Through interviewing Redacted, she stated that she had 3 or 4 massages from Mr. Epstein. By Redacted. Special Agent Redacted, the sexual activity that you described that Redacted went through, is that what she said happened during those 3 to 4 massages, correct? Right. Does that answer your question? The grand juror. Not really. How do we know, about all these 25, 30? The grand juror. There is more dates than match up with the amount of massages. The grand juror. There were 100 phone calls. The grand juror. Are we supposed to assume a phone call was made each time they had sexual contact? The witness. No. There were lots of phone calls made arranging appointments between the girls. That doesn't mean that every phone call that was made was a trip over to Mr. Epstein's house to perform a massage. Redacted. Yes, ma'am. A grand juror. Couldn't they put anything in this indictment about stalking her? Are there any rules about against stalking children? Redacted. I will address. That is a legal question that I will address when the special agent is outside of the grand jury. Any other factual questions related? A grand juror. I don't have a question related to Jane Doe number 4. It was a question I asked last week. What does Mr. Epstein do for work? How does he make his money? I asked that later in the game last week. Okay, I guess we can just address that now. By Redacted. What is Mr. Epstein's state of profession? He is an investor. And he manages portfolios valued at about $1 billion or more? Yes. Who is his best known client? The owner of the Limited and Victoria's Secret. And you mentioned that as gifts, Mr. Epstein tended to give Victoria's Secret's panties and bra sets? Yes. Does that answer the question? The grand juror. Yes. Redacted. Yes, ma'am. The grand juror. Count 28. I thought I heard the detective say that it was the Gulfstream rather than the Boeing 727 on flight records, just for your info. Redacted. Count number 28. Let's go back there. By Redacted. Could you restate for the grand jury which company owns the Gulfstream? The Gulfstream is owned by Hyperion Air Inc. And the Boeing is owned by whom? JEJE Inc. Or JEGE Inc., I should say. Ooh, tongue twister. Any other questions before we go on to Jane Doe number 5? We have 4 minutes. Special Agent Redacted, why don't I ask you to step outside so I can answer that question for the grand jury and address some issues? The witness was excused from the grand jury room. Questions posed by the grand jury. The testimony of the witness was concluded before the grand jury. Certificate of Reporter. I certify pages 2 through 36 are a true transcript of my shorthand notes of the testimony of Redacted before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach, Florida, on the 15th day of Tuesday, 2007. Nancy Siegel, Notary Public. Commission, DD02-82274. Expires May 8th, 2008. Alright, next file. We got another. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. In RE Operation Leap Year. Federal Grand Jury 07-103, West Palm Beach, Florida, May 8, 2007. Appearances, redacted, Esquire. Assistant United States Attorney. Redacted, 4-person. Testimony of, redacted. The sworn testimony of E. Redacted was taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach Division, West Palm Beach County, State of Florida, on the 8th day of May 2007. Philip W. May, court reporter, was authorized and did report the sworn testimony. The witness entered the grand jury room. Redacted. Having been duly sworn by the grand jury 4-person, was examined and testified on her oath as follows. Examination. By redacted. Oh, thank you, Ezio. Welcome to membership. Thank you very much. By redacted. Could you start by reminding us of your name and where you're employed? Redacted. 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 I work for the FBI here in West Palm Beach on their violent crime squad. And you are one of the case agents in Operation Leap Year? Yes, I am. Did you recently participate in an interview of Redacted? Yes. Can you tell us Redacted's date of birth? Redacted was born on Redacted. And you spoke with her recently? Yes, we did. So she was 18 at the time of the interview? Yes, I believe she was. Who is Redacted? Redacted was identified by the Palm Beach Police Department as one of the girls who had frequented Mr. Epstein's house. How exactly did the Palm Beach Police Department determine that she was one of those girls? When they did their search warrant at Mr. Epstein's residence, some message pads were obtained at his residence, and they had several calls from a girl named Redacted and phone numbers, so they were able to track those messages back to Redacted. Did the Palm Beach Police Department try to interview Miss Redacted? They did. Did she agree to speak with them? No. She stated that she loved Jeffrey Epstein and that she would not say anything positive or negative about what occurred. After the FBI became involved in this investigation, did you try to interview Miss Redacted? We did, as well, with no such luck as well. How long ago was it that you first made contact with Miss Redacted? It was back in November of 2006. Did you try to serve her with a subpoena issued on behalf of this grand jury? Yes, we did. What happened? She refused service of the grand jury subpoena, but she was notified of when her appearance was expected here, and a subpoena was left with her. After that, did she obtain an attorney? Yes, she did. Who was that? Jim Eisenberg. He's a well-known defense attorney here in West Palm Beach. Who paid for that attorney? Mr. Epstein is paying for Redacted's attorney. Now, once Miss Redacted secured the attorney, did she agree to be interviewed? Yes, she did, after she was granted 6001 immunity. She requested immunity. Did the Justice Department authorize that grant of immunity? Yes, they did. After that, did she agree to be interviewed? Yeah. It was only after she was given that immunity that she would talk with us. When did the interview take place? It took place at the end of April of this year, so just a few weeks ago. Who was present at that interview? Myself, my partner, Agent Redacted, the author, Redacted, her attorney, Jim Eisenberg, and his investigator, as well as Redacted. What did Miss Redacted tell you about Jeffrey Epstein? She stated that she had met an individual by the name of Redacted at a party who had asked her if she wanted to make a few bucks by giving a man a massage. She was told that Mr. Epstein preferred them to be topless, and she agreed to go to his house to give him a massage. How old did Miss Redacted tell you that she was at that time? She stated she was 16 when she first started giving Mr. Epstein massages. Based upon your reviews of the evidence, is that correct? No. We have phone records where Redacted, phonetic, Mr. Epstein's assistant is contacting Redacted on her cell phone, or using her cell phone to call Redacted's cell phone starting in April 2004, which makes Redacted 15. So she said that she was 16, but your evidence shows that she was 15, and she said that she was told she could make a few bucks giving a topless massage. Yes. What else did Miss Redacted tell you? That she went to Mr. Epstein's residence, that Redacted took her there the first time, that when she went upstairs, she was paid $200 when she first got there by Redacted. Then she goes upstairs and Mr. Epstein comes in, he disrobes, puts on a towel, lays down on the massage table, and she begins to massage him. She tells Epstein that she heard he likes topless massages, and he told her that he did. And she said, who wouldn't? And she ended up taking off her top during the first massage. But Redacted is clear that Mr. Epstein did not at any point touch her during the massage. But does she admit that he Redacted? Yes. On the second massage, Mr. Epstein asked her to leave her phone number with redacted. Her phone number was left there. On the second massage, she returned the very next day and gave him another massage. This time, Mr. Epstein redacted. Did Miss Redacted admit that redacted? Yes, redacted. And I think her term was that redacted, meaning that redacted. How long of a period of time did Miss Redacted tell you that she performed massages? She wasn't able to give us a number of massages, but just said that it was a lot, and that she had been giving massages for a year. You mentioned to the grand jury that Miss Redacted said that Mr. Epstein never touched her, correct? Yes. And she was very adamant about that. Yes, she was. Were there other things that she was adamant about in her interview with you? Well, she talked about what she would tell the girls and that she told Mr. Epstein that she was 18. I'm sorry, I take that back. She was told to say that she was 18, and she told us that she had a fake ID showing that she was 18. Have you been able to identify some of the girls that Miss Redacted brought to Mr. Epstein's home? Yes. Were any of those girls over 18? No, not that we found so far. Have any of the girls told investigators about what Mr. Epstein knew about their ages? I'm sorry, say that again? Have any of the girls who came through Redacted been interviewed about what Mr. Epstein knew about their ages? We did interview them regarding that, and I'm not sure if he asked them. They were all told to say they were 18, but not on every occasion would Mr. Epstein inquire about their age. Do you want to check your records on that? Yes, could I do that? Please do. Yes, please do. Sorry. I can tell you that one of the girls that she brought, this girl told Mr. Epstein that she was in high school, and actually told him her true age, which was under 18. So what Redacted told you about, that wasn't really the case? No, that wasn't. Sorry. That's alright. I just wanted to make sure it's clear. God damn, I've got a creaky-ass chair. I better get some WD-40 for that. So Miss Redacted told you that she had been told to say she was 18, and she also told you that she had a fake ID? Yes. Did she ever say that Mr. Epstein either asked for her age or asked to see her ID? No. The topic never came up. But... oh no. Did you also ask her about how appointments were made? Yes. She was very clear in the fact that Redacted would call her to arrange the appointments, but that Redacted would call her once Jeffrey was in town. So she was adamant that the calls only happened when she was already here? Yes. Were you made aware that Epstein's counsel was informed that he was being investigated for travelling to engage in prostitution, which means that the appointments would have been made before the travelling? Yes. Was there anything else, besides the issue of age and the issue of when the appointments were made, that sounded coached or that she was especially adamant about? No, I wouldn't say coached. I mean, we talked about the preferences that Jeffrey discussed, as far as which girls he would like Redacted to bring. Once Redacted started giving massages to Epstein, Redacted told us that he liked different faces, so he would ask her to bring other girls. We asked her if he ever gave any preferences of what he preferred, and her response was that Epstein liked girls like her, which is thin and blonde and attractive. And how old was she at the time? She was 15. So thin, blonde, attractive, and young, girls like her. I guess we asked if she ever made a mistake or ever brought somebody that Mr. Epstein didn't take to. She said that she screwed up and that she brought a black girl to Mr. Epstein, and that Epstein was not interested in black girls. But he did pay her, and said that he wasn't a racist. He paid her the $200 for her time, but he did not want her to perform a massage for him. And he didn't allow that girl to perform a massage. No. Was there anything else that Miss Redacted talked about in the interview that you want to share with the grand jury? I did ask her at the end of the interview if she was in love with Mr. Epstein. She looked into the camera and said that she loved him like a friend, but then she kind of looked into the camera and gave a wink and a smile and said, "But with your money, I'd marry you any time, Jeffrey." Jesus. Did she also say that she considered him to be an awesome guy? Several times she referred to him as an awesome guy. She said that the girls begged her to come and that the girls didn't have a complaint, and the girls would share with her everything that happened after the massage, and that Jeffrey never touched any of the girls. But as I informed you, we did interview some of the girls that she took, and he has touched them. In preparation for your testimony today, did you also speak with someone who is considered to be an expert in these cases? Yes. And what is that person's name? Redacted. Has Mr. Redacted been qualified to testify as an expert in federal and state courts in cases that involve what he calls compliant victims? Yes. What does he mean by the term compliant victim? A compliant victim is when a victim is not necessarily forced into the conduct that the offender wants them to engage into, that they actually consent to that kind of activity. So that would involve minors who are subjected to sexual activity but weren't necessarily kidnapped or forced at gunpoint or something like that. Exactly. Did he discuss with you the differences that exist when you interview those types of victims? Yes. He stated that a compliant victim is oftentimes embarrassed that they went along with the behaviour. They are also likely to deny the behaviour, especially when being interviewed by investigators, that they'll deny it or they'll minimise it. Sometimes it takes 2, 3 or multiple interviews to get compliant victims to either trust their interviewer or realise that their interviewer is not going to be judgmental. In this case, have you found that to be the case with some of the interviews? Yes, I have. In addition to being embarrassed, sometimes these victims feel guilty about the fact that they were involved in this type of activity. Oh yes. Does Mr. Redacted also have expertise in sexual preference of offenders? Yes, he does. Did he explain why an offender would select the types of victims that are involved in this case? Girls between 14 and 17 years old. This type of offender, the sexual preference he has is for post-pubescent females that are physically developed but not necessarily mentally matured. The girls ranging in this age are sometimes inexperienced. They are possibly naive, not as worldly. An offender of this type could also maybe not feel sexually adequate or feel competent dealing with his own age group. So knowing that these girls are less experienced may focus on them as well. In addition to their emotional immaturity, did Mr. Redacted talk about whether or not younger girls are easier to manipulate than grown women? Yes. Did he talk to you about grooming? Yeah. That's what an offender will use when with a compliant victim. He told us that grooming is a technique where you gain the cooperation of those victims by focusing on their interests and playing up to those interests. It's a type of seduction. No, I'll redo that bit. It's a type of seduction, he called it. That was his words for it. And we actually see this in this case. Can you give us an example of some of the types of grooming that Mr. Epstein used? With one of the girls we're going to talk about today, Redacted, it's very apparent interviewing her how Epstein groomed her. She only went to 3 or 4 massages at this time that she's admitted to. We feel that due to her phone conversations, the multiple calls, that there may be more. At this point, she has stated to us that she has performed 3 or 4 massages for Mr. Epstein. What he did is, when she first went there, he played upon... She was very shy, and he would play upon that shyness. He told her that she was pretty. He asked her to remove her clothing, and she would not. So he kind of kidded around with her shyness and complimented her, showed interest in her, talked about her boyfriend and different interests she had. At the end of that interview, because she did not take off her clothes, he tells her that if she's willing to do more, she will make more. He also tells her that he will pay her if she will bring other girls. As the massages increased, you can see that the next time she comes, he plays again to that shyness, but he gets a little bit more. I guess he sees that it's not working. This time she does comply and takes off her... He asks her to disrobe on the second massage. She takes off her blouse, but she refuses to take off the bra after Mr. Epstein asked her to. So you can see that he tries through showing interest. And then he actually... When he sees that this isn't working, he takes a more authoritative role with her in the last massage. She said that throughout all of these massages he was very nice, and then at the end he was very much more frustrated and irritated. She does get down to her bra and panties on that one. He's just much more authoritative. So he started with the grooming process, tried to get her interest, tried to use that to get her to comply with removing her clothes. But as often happens at the end of this, he took over and was much more forceful with his requests. Have other girls described that same situation, where every time they went back, he tried to push it one step further and one step further? Yes. Several of the girls have said that he would always push more and more. Did Mr. Redacted explain why it is that a compliant child victim cannot legally consent to the sexual conduct? Yeah. He stated that, we talked about how the law protects children, and stated that we hold adults accountable. When it comes to adolescents, they go through normal tendencies that mature offenders may try to take advantage of. But the law is in place for that reason, in the federal law, to protect those individuals under the age of 18. And that's because of the different maturity levels of the offender versus the victims. Exactly. Did you put together the photographs of the defendants in this case? Yes, I did. Are these photographs of the 4 human defendants who are named in the proposed indictment? Yes. With their names underneath them? Yes. Agent, who is in the top left-hand corner? That's Jeffrey Epstein. When was this photograph taken? Recently. There was an article that just came out regarding Mr. Epstein and his connection, or his personal relationship with Prince Andrew, and there was a picture that was in the article. Who is in the top right-hand corner? That's redacted. Again, this is a relatively recent photograph. Yes, that's his personal assistant. And the bottom left-hand corner? Again, that is one of Mr. Epstein's personal assistants. That's redacted. Phonetic. Has Miss Redacted since got married? Yes, her name now is redacted. And the bottom right-hand corner? That is redacted. She is, again, a personal assistant to Mr. Epstein. There has been some talk that she is also romantically, or should I say sexually involved with Mr. Epstein. How old are the defendants? Jeffrey is in his mid-50s, and the three girls are in their early 20s. Do you have a copy of the draft indictment in front of you? Yes, I do. You mentioned when we were looking at the photographs of the three females that the three females work as personal assistants for Mr. Epstein. Is that correct? Yes. So he is their employer? Yes. Oh, dear. One sec. Throat's getting a little bit raw. Are you familiar with the property located at 358 Old Way in Palm Beach? That's Mr. Epstein's residence, and he owns that residence. Yes, he does. Are you familiar with defendant JEGE Inc.? Yes, JEGE Inc. is owned by Jeffrey Epstein. He is the president, the owner, the sole director. It is a business that is solely used for the activities of one of Mr. Epstein's airplanes, which is his Boeing 727. His tail number is N908JE. And you mentioned that he is the president and the sole director. Is he also the sole shareholder? Yes, he is. Are you familiar with Hyperion Air Inc.? Yes. Hyperion Air Inc. is also a business owned by Mr. Epstein. He is also the president, the director, and the sole shareholder of that company as well. That company solely does business with his other aircraft, which is a Gulfstream G1159B. It bears a tail number N909JE. Is that a smaller aircraft than the Boeing? Yes. Just to briefly remind the grand jury about where the evidence has been collected in this case, was the start of your investigation information that you received from the Palm Beach Police Department? Yes, it was. And that included evidence seized during a search of Mr. Epstein's home at Old Way? Yes. Also controlled calls that the Palm Beach Police Department placed? Yes. And interviews of girls and other people by the Palm Beach Police Department? Yes, as well as trash pulls that the Palm Beach Police Department conducted on Mr. Epstein's residence. Then, when the FBI became involved, the FBI did additional interviews of girls and of recruiters? Yes. They obtained phone records? Yes, we have. And records of payments? Yes. Did this grand jury also subpoena travel records? Yes. Including the flight manifests of the planes owned by Hyperion and JEGE? Yes. Did you also get corporate documents related to those two planes? Yes, we have. Once you had obtained all of this information, did the FBI analyze the data, specifically the call information and the flight information, to put together a pattern of activity by the defendants? Yes, we did. So you have a series of phone calls coming from these three assistants who are on the board. The two girls who have been identified through this investigation? Yes. When you spoke with those girls, did any of them tell you that they had developed some sort of a personal relationship with the assistants, so that they were just chatting over the telephone? No, not at all. All of them said, what about the phone calls? Said that the phone calls were made to set up appointments for Mr. Epstein. And the girls refer to it as appointments to work, is that right? Yes, they were appointments to work. There is one exception, redacted. We're going to talk about her probably next week. She did say on one or two occasions that redacted had called her when she had gone out to California on a trip, I believe. But that is the only time that was ever mentioned. In fact, we asked, and those phone calls were made for the purposes of setting up appointments for Mr. Epstein. Is the investigation continuing? Yes, it is. Are you still trying to locate and interview more girls? Yes. Let's turn to the specific evidence reporting the overt acts and offences related to Jane Doe's 1 through 5. I know that every member of the grand jury has a copy of the draft indictment before them, and also a chart. Do you have a copy of that chart? Do you have a copy of that draft chart as well? I do. Do you have photographs of the 5 girls that we are going to talk about today? Yes. And these are photographs of the people that we are calling Jane Does 1 through 5? Yes. And Jane Doe number 1, you have previously testified about her? Yes, I have. That's redacted. Jane Doe number 2, that is redacted. Jane Doe number 3, that is redacted. Jane Doe number 4, redacted. And Jane Doe number 5, that is redacted. Juror. The purpose of Epstein's business with his planes? Did he transport? The witness. To travel around. Juror. So it wasn't like a business of transporting other people? The witness. He flew other guests, sometimes unaccompanied, sometimes accompanied. Juror. Redacted, redacted, and redacted. Do you have any evidence that they started young, like the rest of the recruits? The witness. We have evidence that they are his personal assistants employed by him, not that it was anything like what we were discussing. Juror. There was an allegation that was made earlier, back in February, during one of these discussions, about a specific act that was performed. Can I ask about that? We were told back in February that one of the girls when interviewed had alleged rape, and I hadn't heard about that allegation recently. The witness. That's probably Jane Doe number 6. We're going to talk about her, that he forcibly put her on the table and redacted. Yeah, she will be coming up. We're going to do her probably next week. She'll be the first one we'll talk about. By Ms. Redacted. So, turning to Jane Doe number 1, redacted. You testified about her earlier before this grand jury, correct? Yes, I did. And she also testified before this grand jury, correct? Yes. Can you remind us of her date of birth? She was born on redacted. Can you briefly refresh the grand jury's recollection of how she was recruited? She was approached on a beach by redacted and redacted, phonetic. They approached her on a beach and asked her if she wanted to perform massages for Mr. Epstein and make some money. From the review of the phone records that you have received, were you able to identify a telephone number associated with redacted? Yes. In fact, has redacted been interviewed? Yes, he has. And has he admitted to being a recruiter for Mr. Epstein? Yes, recruiter and driver. If you could take a look at Overt Act number 2, which appears on page 5, that states, on or about March 12, 2004, defendants Jeffrey Epstein and redacted caused Jane Doe number 1 to travel to 358 Brillo Way of Palm Beach, Florida. Can you tell us what evidence you have regarding that? We have reviewed phone records for redacted and redacted that indicate the calls took place, as well as phone records for redacted and redacted, and calls that took place on or about those dates. We've also looked at a flight manifest, and were able to show that Mr. Epstein arrived the day before, on the 11th. We also have redacted statement where she describes the sexual activity that took place. Q. On that date, March 12th of 2004, redacted described going to Mr. Epstein's house and performing a sexual massage. Yes, on or about that day. On or about that date, what did redacted state about being paid? She was paid $200. And that relates to Overt Act number 3? Yes. And she stated that Mr. Epstein is the person who gave her that. She told us that in her statement. If you could take a look at Overt Act number 95, which is on page 17. On or about February 6, 2005, Epstein had Jane Doe number 1 to make one or more telephone calls to Jane Doe number 2. First of all, who is Jane Doe number 2? That will be redacted, our youngest victim. Can you tell us what evidence you have related to that overt act? We have the girl's statements that calls were made. We also reviewed the phone records that indicated that there was telephonic contact between the numbers belonging to redacted and redacted. And in the statement of both girls, did they describe that redacted is the person who called redacted looking for someone to come and work at Mr. Epstein's house? Yes. Looking at Overt Act number 96, on or about February 6, 2005, Epstein caused Jane Doe number 1 to transport Jane Doe number 2 to 358 Obrelo Way. What is the evidence related to that? Again, the statements of redacted and redacted support that as further evidence, and also reviewing the phone records, they indicate that there was telephonic contact between redacted and redacted and redacted and redacted. Overt Act number 97, on or about February 6, 2005, Epstein made a payment of $300 to Jane Doe number 2 and a payment of $200 to Jane Doe number 1. What was the evidence of that? Both redacted and redacted stated in their statements that redacted was paid $300 and that redacted was paid $200 for bringing redacted. Did redacted explain why she was paid $300? Yes, she was paid $300 because she performed her massage. Mr. Epstein redacted and redacted a redacted on redacted. After this date, after February 6, 2005, was $300 found in redacted's purse when it was searched at her school? Yes, it was, by a school administrator. If you could look at Overt Act number 117, which is on page 19, and that states that, or on or about March 30th, 2005, redacted caused one or more calls to be made to a telephone used by Jane Doe number 1? What evidence do you have related to that? We reviewed the phone records of redacted and redacted that indicate this. And overt at 1:20, on or about March 31st, redacted, caused one or more calls to be made to a telephone used by Jane Doe number 1. Again, we reviewed the phone records that indicated there was telephonic contact between the numbers belonging to redacted and redacted. Then we have overt at number 112, which is also March 31, that Epstein and redacted caused Jane Doe number 1 to make a call to a telephone used by Jane Doe number 2. What evidence do you have related to that? We have phone records that we have reviewed belonging to redacted and redacted. In this case, we also have a voicemail that was provided to us by the Palm Beach Police Department, a voicemail of redacted leaving a voicemail message on redacted's phone. And overt act number 123 refers to April 1st. What evidence do you have related to that? We've reviewed the phone records of redacted and redacted that indicate telephonic contact was made on this day. We also again have another recorded voicemail by redacted left on redacted's phone. These later calls, the March-April calls, are those the control calls that the Palm Beach Police Department was involved in? There was control calls placed to redacted's cell phone and to redacted's place of work by redacted, under the supervision of the Palm Beach Police Department. And the voicemail message that you referred to of redacted calling redacted, what information was redacted leaving in that voicemail message? Redacted was asking for redacted to get back in touch, that she has set up an appointment for redacted at Epstein's house on the following day, on that Saturday at around 10:30 or 11. In addition to the phone records, was there anything that the Palm Beach Police Department found that also confirmed that this appointment actually was made? As I mentioned earlier, the Palm Beach Police Department was doing trash pulls on Mr. Epstein's residence. In there were 2 messages or notes in there on Epstein's personalized stationery. On it said, redacted with redacted on Saturday at 10:30, and redacted on Saturday with redacted at 10:30. That's the exact message on the 2 notes that were found in his trash when they retrieved it on April 8th. If I could direct your attention to count number 5, which appears on page 26, that is the charge of enticement of a minor, referring to Jane Doe number 1, and Mr. Epstein and redacted are charged. I know that you talked about the telephone traffic, the calls between redacted and redacted. Did they fall within that March 7th through March 11th timeframe? A review of their telephone records do indicate that there were phone calls made during that time. And Jane Doe number 1 actually went to Mr. Epstein's home. Yes, and performed a massage for him in the nude. And she was paid for that. Yes, she was paid $200. And he redacted, correct? Yes, he did. I would like to include that redacted took redacted upstairs for that massage, and she also set up the massage table and arranged the oil and lotions for redacted to do that massage. And also, just so it's clear, how old was redacted at that time? She was 17. Redacted. Are there any questions about either how that evidence was presented, or about the charges related to Jane Doe number 1? Seeing no questions, we'll turn to Jane Doe number 2. By redacted. You previously mentioned that was redacted. Yes. Let's turn to count number 6, which is on page 26, which is the enticement of redacted. If you could tell the grand jury about the evidence related to that. Redacted's date of birth is redacted. So during this period of February 5th, 2005 to the 6th, how old was she? She was 14. Can you remind the grand jury about the evidence related to the enticement of redacted? As we stated earlier, we talked about the telephone calls. We have shown that the facility of interstate commerce was used by the telephone calls made by their cell phones. We examined specifically redacted, 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 and redacted. Those calls were made to set up and arrange appointments for Mr. Epstein to have his massages. Sorry, a little bit of reflux there. Pertaining to redacted, during the massage that occurred on those dates, February 6th in particular, I think I have it discussed with you before what occurred on that he redacted, and that was his term for it, and that he redacted. He did redacted during their massage, and she redacted. She was paid $300, and we know that she was 14 at the time. If we could turn to count number 43, which appears on page 31. Count 43 is one of the travel counts. If you could tell the grand jury, did a trip occur on March 31st, 2005? Yes, we have flight records that indicate a flight occurred on that date. What type of plane was used? I'm going to refer to the JEGE Incorporated aircraft as just the Boeing 727. If we talk about the Hyperion Air Incorporated aircraft, which is the Gulfstream, I will just say the Gulfstream. So on that date, he did travel on his Boeing 727 on 331. And Mr. Epstein was aboard the plane on that day. Yes, he was. With respect to the March 31st trip, was there evidence of him setting up the appointment with Redacted prior to that trip? We do have telephonic contact between Redacted and Redacted, as well as Redacted and Redacted on the day before and the day of travel. And even though that appointment was never kept, that Redacted never went to that appointment, you have the notes that were retrieved from the garbage that show that Mr. Epstein was expecting Redacted to show up for that appointment. Yes. Anything else with respect to that particular account? We also have the controlled calls and the voicemails. Turning to count number 60, which appears on page 34, that is the attempted enticement of Redacted during the period of March 30th to April 1st. Again, at that point, Redacted was how old? She was 14. And we had talked about the telephone calls that we used. One of the things that is relevant to this particular account was that in addition to the fact that Redacted was 14, did you interview a girl who went with Redacted when she went to Mr. Epstein's house back in February? Yes, we did. That would be Redacted. And Redacted was interviewed? Yes, she was interviewed by the Palm Beach Police Department. What did Redacted say about Redacted's appearance? That she was the youngest looking girl that came. When you talked with Redacted, did Redacted talk about girls that Mr. Epstein liked in particular? Yes. And was Redacted one of those girls? Yes. She was one of his preferences. Redacted also told us that Mr. Epstein said to her on one occasion, the younger the better. And there was never any attempt to get Redacted's ID, or to confirm her actual age? No. As we discussed before, Redacted never actually went to that point, right? So that is just an attempt? Yes. Redacted. Are there any questions from the grand jury? Seeing no questions, we'll see you next week. Thank you. Witness excused. Certificate of Reporter. I certify pages 1 to 35 as a true transcript of my shorthand notes of the testimony of Redacted before the federal grand jury, West Palm Beach, Florida, on the 8th day of May 2007. Dated at West Palm Beach, Florida, this 23rd day of May 2007. Philip W. May, Court Reporter. Ooh. Oh, what's this? Okay. Full set of GJ transcripts for scanning. Redacted transcript, April 24th, 2007. God. Alright. You have to... There we go. Alright, we're good. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. RE Operation Leap Year. Testimony of Redacted. Federal Grand Jury 07103, Federal Building, U.S. Courthouse, West Palm Beach, Florida, Tuesday, April 24th, 2007. Appearances. Redacted. Assistant United States Attorney. Redacted, foreperson. The sworn testimony of Redacted was taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach Division. Federal Building, U.S. Courthouse, Palm Beach County, State of Florida, on Tuesday, April 24th, 2007. Paula E. Angelocchi, Certified Court Reporter and Notary Public, State of Florida, Official Reporting Service, LLC, 527 South Andrews Avenue, Suite 302N, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33301, was authorized to and did report the sworn testimony. Witness enters the grand jury room. The foreperson. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. The foreperson. Thank you. Please be seated. Examination. By Redacted. Good afternoon, Miss Redacted. Could you state and spell your name for the record? Redacted. And where do you currently live? I live... Do you want me to give the address? Sure. Redacted, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33412. Okay. And you are living with your parents now? Yes. Were you served with a subpoena to appear before the grand jury today? Yes. And do you understand that an order was signed by a judge compelling you to appear and answer questions? Yes. And that order states that what you tell the grand jury won't be used against unless you perjure yourself? Yes. Do you understand that you are under oath, and if you don't tell the truth... I can go to jail, yes. Okay. Let's start with where you went to high school. Redacted. How old are you today? 21. And what is your date of birth? Redacted. What year did you graduate from Redacted? 2004. And where are you currently working? I currently am not working. But you are redacted. Redacted. Where will that be? Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs. What type of position will that be? Redacted. Have you worked since the last time that you graduated from high school? Oh no, there's aha. Okay. Can you tell the grand jury what type of jobs you have had? I worked at Redacted. I worked in a club up in Orlando as Redacted as well. I have also worked at a sports bar as a waitress. When you were in high school, where did you work? Redacted and Redacted. And do you know Jeffrey Epstein? Yes, I do. Can you tell the grand jury how you first came to meet Mr. Epstein? I met Epstein through 2 acquaintances, Redacted and Redacted, and I met them at a beach resort. They made a proposition to me. Later then, I picked them up and they gave me directions to the house, and that's where I was formally introduced to Mr. Epstein. Okay. And let me just go back over that a little bit. You mentioned that you had 2 acquaintances, Redacted and Redacted, and you met them at a beach resort, correct? Yes. And you said that they made a proposition to you. What was that exactly? Redacted had asked me if I wanted to make money, and she was working for this guy, Epstein, in Palm Beach. So I told her that I was interested, and she further went into detail about massaging him. That you would have to take off articles of clothing, and there would be touching and fondling involved. How old were you when this happened? About 16. And how old was Redacted? Same age. And how did you know Redacted? We went to Redacted together. And she was in your same grade in high school? Yeah. And you mentioned that Redacted had previously worked for Epstein, or was currently working for Epstein? Yes, that's right. So they explained this proposal to you, and you said that you would be interested? Yes. What happened next? Within a couple of days to a week, I picked them up, and I went to his house to work for him, and I was introduced to Redacted, who was his assistant. She took me upstairs to Epstein's bedroom, and that's where the massage took place. I was naked, and he tried fondling me, and I wouldn't have it. So after the massage, he gave me another proposition, to bring girls to the house, and for every girl that I brought, I would make $200. All right. We'll go back over that a little bit more slowly. I know this is a lot of information. Sorry, I'm scratching itch. So let's go back to the proposition that Redacted and Redacted made to you. Did they say you would be paid for massaging Mr. Epstein? Yes. And how much would you be paid? $200. Now you said that they had told you that you might have to take your clothing off. They told me that I was expected to take my clothing off, and that there would be fondling. Okay, and what... Did they explain what fondling meant? Just that he'd be touching me. Okay, and so you agreed to do that, and you went to Mr. Epstein's home. Correct. And where was that located? Palm Beach, Brillo Way. Brillo? Yes. And when you arrived at the home, you said that you were driving with Redacted and Redacted. That is correct. Tell us how you got into the house. We went through a gate on the side of the house that led to the back, and we just rang the doorbell, and Redacted answered the door, and we were standing in the kitchen, and then Redacted brought me upstairs. Okay. Now, did Redacted tell you anything about what you would do when you got upstairs? No, she never discussed that with me. Did she say anything to you about taking your clothes off? No, she never discussed that with me. Okay. When you arrived upstairs, you said that you went into a bedroom. That is correct. What was in the bedroom? It was a bedroom that had a door that led to... Then, I want to say a bigger, more than just a bathroom. It was a bigger room with, like, a pretty large-sized walk-in closet, a shower, a steam shower, and then 2 sinks on the right, and in the middle lay the massage table, and then to the left there were 2 couches. And so the massage table was already set up when you arrived? That is correct. Okay. And after Redacted led you up to the bedroom, what did she do? She had left, and that's when Epstein came in. Okay. And when Mr. Epstein came in, what was he wearing? He was wearing a towel. Okay. And nothing else? Nothing else. And what did he do? He laid on the table, and that's when the massage began, and later on When he got in, I took off my clothes, and I was just wearing my bottoms, and he later tried to touch me, and he grabbed my butt, and that's when I had a problem. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable. So later he took the towel off, and he was laying on his back, and he
redacted, asking me to redact it, and then after that everything was done.
Okay, so when Mr. Epstein redacted, then the massage or whatever was over?
Yes, it was.
And once that happened, what did he do?
Just got up and dried himself off, and then walked me downstairs.
And you got dressed as well?
That's right.
And when you got back downstairs, what happened?
I went back into the kitchen, and he pulled redacted and redacted aside, and then we just left. Of course I got paid.
Okay, and tell us where you got paid, who paid you, and how much you received.
Epstein paid me. I received $200, but I cannot recall if it was upstairs that he paid me, or if he waited until I got back downstairs.
Okay, and when he paid you the $200, was it in small bills, large bills?
Big bills, 100s.
Okay, so 2 $100 bills, and you said that he pulled redacted and redacted aside. Do you know what that was about?
He would never pay them in front of me. He was always funny about that, so I'm sure it was just paying them for bringing me.
Okay, and you mentioned that you told Mr. Epstein that you were uncomfortable with him touching you.
That's correct.
And what became of that?
Later on, before I left, he had addressed me not to massage him anymore, but asked me if I could bring girls over, and for every girl that I brought to the table, he would pay me $200.
Okay, so you weren't comfortable with him touching you, so you weren't going to do any more massages?
No.
He wanted you to find other girls?
That's correct.
And he wanted girls that would let him touch them?
Uh-huh.
After that first massage, did you perform any other massages at his house?
Absolutely not.
Did you bring girls?
That's correct.
And tell us how you started to bring girls to Mr. Epstein's house.
Just girls that I met in high school, acquaintances, people that I just said hi and bye to. A lot of them actually heard about it through a couple of girls that I brought, and they were interested. Some of the girls asked me about it, just girls in school I talked to, just get on the subject. They had no problem with it.
Okay, so when you found a girl that you thought would be interested, what exactly would you tell her?
I asked them if they were interested in making extra money, and that I knew an older, wealthier man in Palm Beach who liked to have massages, and they would get paid $200. The more they did, the more they make, and I would explain to them in detail what was expected of them when they showed up at the house, and I also told them that if they are underage, just lie about it and tell them that you are 18.
Let's talk first about what you said that you tell them what was expected of them.
Yes.
First of all, why did you tell them that?
Because that's what I was told.
By whom?
Redacted and redacted.
Okay. And did Jeffrey Epstein ever address you about don't bring girls over here if they don't know what's going to happen?
Absolutely.
Okay. So all the girls were supposed to know that when they got there, they would be undressing.
They would be undressing. They would be touching. They would be fondling. He was very big on that. He told me never to bring a girl over unless they knew what was expected.
Okay. And did you also tell them that he would redact it?
I didn't really talk to them about that. I didn't know if he did it with everybody or it was just with me and he did that.
But you told them that they all would have to be partially naked or fully naked.
Partially to fully naked, and they would be touching and fondling.
Okay. How many girls do you think you took to Mr. Epstein's house?
7. Between 7 to 10.
Okay. And were there any... In addition to this rule about the girls, had to know what was expected, did Mr. Epstein have any other rules in terms of what the girls looked like or what he liked?
No.
Okay. Were there girls that you brought that he didn't like?
There were a few girls he wasn't crazy about. He didn't really like. He didn't favour redacted, for instance. 23. He thought that she was kind of too old.
Okay. So you brought a girl named Redacted who was 23 years old?
Yes.
And you were told that she was too old?
Yes.
Did you ever bring her back?
No.
What about any other girls that he didn't like?
This other girl I went to high school with, redacted. She was maybe a year younger, and him and her got redacted. I told her in detail what was expected, and she, to me, was all for it, and then when she got there, decided she didn't want to perform what was necessary. So they got redacted, and after that, I never really brought her back.
Okay. And did either Jeffrey Epstein or Redacted say anything to you about what happened with Redacted?
He had made a comment just about... He had asked me for someone to come over and work, and when I suggested Redacted, he kind of nodded, not really interested. He told me to find somebody else, so I assumed that meant he really didn't care for her.
Okay. Now you mentioned Redacted, who was 23. What was the age range of the other girls that you brought to Mr. Epstein's home?
High school. 16 to 18. Were there any girls who were younger than that? Yes. Who was that? Redacted. And how was she? She was 14. Okay. Now you were interviewed by the Palm Beach Police Department. That's correct. And during that interview you told them that there were 2 ways to make money with Jeffrey Epstein. Can you care to explain to the grand jury what those 2 ways are? The more you did is the more you make. Basically, the more clothes that come off, the more you let him touch you. The more you just let him have his way with you, is the more that you would make. Otherwise, you would be demoted down to bringing girls over and just making money that way. And that's what you were doing. That's correct. Was bringing girls? That's correct. If you could explain to the grand jury how you would go about making an appointment for a girl to come and give you a massage. Give him a massage, sorry. Or give him a massage. God damn, I'm stuttering over my words a lot. I'm very sorry about that. His assistant there would call me either before they got into town or while he was in town, and either she would ask me for a particular girl, preferably one that he favoured, or if I couldn't get a hold of that girl, just bring somebody over to work. I would call the girl, she would okay it. I would call Redacted back, confirm it, set an appointment, and then the next couple of days we'd go. And was Redacted the person that you always made the appointment with? Always. Do you remember ever talking to Jeffrey Epstein on the telephone? Never. The only time I talked to him was physically in person at his house. Okay. Redacted was really the person that you had to deal with. Okay. Now, you mentioned that sometimes Redacted would request a specific girl. That's correct. Did she give you any reason why he really liked this girl, or just, is this girl available? What would happen on those calls? If it was a specific girl, she would call me and just ask, can this girl work? She would never give me a reason. She would never go into detail. It was just, can she work, yes or no? And Redacted was saying to you, can she work? I can't recall if those were her exact words. I can't remember if it was. Can she come over and massage, or can she work? I don't recall the exact words. Okay. And once you made those appointments then, who would normally take you and the girls to the house? I would. Okay. And you would drive? I would drive. And was this always taking place at Mr. Epstein's home? Yes. On Umbrella Way? That's correct. When you spoke with Redacted on the telephone, were all of these conversations about setting up these appointments? When I would talk to Redacted? Yes. Yes. It would be pure business whenever I talked to Redacted. So you didn't have any sort of friendly relationship? No friendly relationship. Never socialized unless I was at the house. It wasn't like that at all. Okay. Now, when you would bring a new girl over to the house, what would you do? Walk up the same way towards the back of the house. They would let us in. I could sit in the kitchen with the girl. I would either wait for Redacted to come in or Jeffrey. Most of the time it was Redacted. Redacted would bring the girl upstairs while I waited downstairs. After the massage, the girl would come downstairs. I would get paid and then we would leave. Tell us how you would get paid when you were the person who brought the girls. What do you mean how I would get paid? Who would pay you? Jeffrey Epstein would pull me aside, whether it be in his, I guess, living room / office. He would just make sure that when he paid me, it was just me and him. Nobody else was around. And how much would you get paid for each girl? $200. And again with the 2 $100 bills? Always $100 bills. Did you ever see the girl who actually did the massages get paid? No, I never saw them get paid. He never paid us in front of each other. Okay. Did the girls ever tell you that they did get paid, or how much they got paid? Most of the time. Okay. And how much money would each girl get paid? It ranges. From? It ranges from $200 to some got paid $300. Like I said, the more you do, the more you make. There were a couple of girls that got paid $300, $400, and then there was a couple of girls that got paid $200, maybe even $100. Now, you mentioned that usually Redacted would take the girl upstairs. That's correct. Were there ever instances where you took the girl upstairs? Very rarely. I think it happened once or twice when Redacted was doing something, or she would need me to go upstairs and set up. I would just go upstairs. I would show her where the massage table was. I would set it up for them. I would show them where the towels were, put the towels on the massage table, and then I would tell them Jeffrey would be in a minute, and then I would walk back downstairs and wait in the kitchen. Okay. And when you were in these other instances where you led the girl upstairs, besides the massage table, did you ever see any other implements that were used during the massage? I think there were maybe a few occasions where I would walk upstairs to show the girl, or maybe it was even when I first massaged him. There was like a white Redacted on the table, or a white Redacted. And can you describe that to the grand jury? What it looked like? What it looked like, yes. It was like a redacted. It was really redacted. The redacted, it was white. I think the top of it was maybe like pink. It was redacted. That's all I remember.
Okay. And did any of the girls ever tell you that redacted?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to run through the names of some girls that you brought just to confirm with the grand jury that you brought them.
Okay.
Redacted? That's correct.
Redacted. Correct.
Redacted.
Correct.
Redacted.
Yes.
Redacted.
Yes.
Redacted.
Yes.
And then there is another girl, redacted.
Redacted never ever worked for Jeffrey. She accompanied me to his house, I think, for once or twice, and waited in the kitchen with me, but she never worked for him.
Okay, but she was somebody that you brought along with you.
That is correct.
On visits?
Yes.
Okay. In addition to those girls who I just named, you mentioned a woman? Redacted, who is 23?
Uh-huh.
Were there any other girls that you recall bringing to Jeffrey Epstein's house?
I cannot recall bringing anybody else.
Okay. Now, one of those girls that we mentioned was redacted, correct?
Yes.
And you told the police that Jeffrey liked redacted the best?
Yes.
How old was redacted?
She was around the same age as me, maybe a grade lower than me.
Okay, so she was underage?
Yes, correct.
And all of those girls whose names I read were underage when you brought them there?
Except for redacted.
Okay. What did redacted look like?
Redacted was redacted. She kind of looks redacted, but she's redacted, maybe? She had redacted.
Was she thin or heavy?
No. She had a redacted figure, maybe a little redacted than me.
And how tall do you think she was?
About 5'5", 5'6".
Okay. And you knew that Jeffrey liked redacted because he would specifically request her?
There was a few occasions that he would specifically ask for her, correct?
Okay. And you mentioned that some of the girls told you about the redacted, correct?
Yes.
Did some of the girls tell you what happened inside of that bedroom?
A few of them did.
Let's talk first about redacted.
Okay.
Did she tell you what happened?
All that she really told me was that they got into redacted. He had tried fondling her, she wasn't having it, and then she only got paid $100, and she felt like she was being ripped off.
Okay. What about redacted? Did she tell you about what happened?
Yes.
What did she explain to you?
Redacted on the way home had told me she got paid $300 and basically let him redacted and redacted.
Okay. And she told you those things?
She told me those things.
That he had redacted and had redacted?
That's correct.
Okay. And that was... When did she tell you that?
Right when we got outside into the truck.
As you were driving away?
That's correct.
Do you remember which other girls told you about the redacted?
I can't recall. I know there was another one that says something about the massager, but I wasn't really paying attention.
Now, when you first went and gave Mr. Epstein the massage, did he ask for your telephone number after you were finished?
No, redacted did.
Redacted did. And she took down your telephone number?
She took down my name and my telephone number.
After that, how was all contact made with you?
Redacted.
Directly to you?
Directly toward me.
Okay. So, were there any more instances where she went either through redacted or redacted to reach you?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Now, when you brought girls over, was it the same thing where they would ask for the girl's name and number?
Yes.
And when that happened, would they continue to go through you to set up appointments?
Most of the time they went through me. Actually, 99.9% of the time, they went through me. On a few occasions, the girls that they liked the best, for instance, redacted. After a while, me and redacted stopped contact with each other, and Jeffrey just went strictly through her.
Okay. And when an appointment was made directly with a girl, you wouldn't necessarily know about it.
I would not necessarily know about it.
And when the appointment was made directly with the girl, then you wouldn't get paid, correct?
Correct.
Did you hear or do you know whether some girls that you brought more girls?
Yeah, I'm sure of it.
Okay. When did you first meet redacted? Was it that day that you went to give the massage?
That's correct.
And how did you first meet her?
Just walking in the kitchen and waiting for somebody, whether it be Epstein or redacted. Redacted came and introduced herself as redacted, and I learned that she was Epstein's assistant.
And you said that she was the one who took you upstairs on your first day?
That's correct.
And we were talking earlier about how appointments would be made for you to bring additional girls, correct?
Yes.
How far in advance would redacted call you to make appointments?
It depends. Sometimes she would call me a few days in advance. Jeffrey is going to be in town tomorrow or this weekend. Have a couple of girls lined up or have a girl lined up. So it would be anywhere between a couple of days to a weekend.
Okay. Did you ever talk with redacted, or did redacted ever tell you anything about what Jeffrey liked to do with the girls?
Absolutely not. We never discussed that. Did you ever talk with her about a rumour that you had heard that a girl had intercourse with Jeffrey? One day I was talking on the phone with Redacted, and I addressed it with her, asking her about a rumour. I heard of a girl sleeping with Jeffrey, having intercourse, and making $1,000, and she denied it and said that he doesn't do that kind of thing. He just plays with them. Okay, so she said that he didn't have intercourse. He just liked to play with the girls? That's correct. And when you spoke with the police, you said that Jeffrey liked to redact it? That's correct. What led you to believe that? He just did it. I just learned that Epstein just redacted. It was like the new thing for him, and it just started happening, and more girls were making comments. So did Redacted know that he was redacted? Not I didn't know of. I didn't say anything, and I don't think that she had an idea. I think she knew there was playing going on. I don't think she knew of what sort. Okay, so she knew that something sexual was going on, but not necessarily what that entailed. Correct. Okay, did Jeffrey or Redacted or anyone else who worked for Mr. Epstein ever ask you for proof of someone's age? Never. Did they ever specifically instruct you that you shouldn't bring girls who are underage to the house? Never. And when you spoke with the police department, you said that at some point Jeffrey said the younger the better. That's correct. And even after that, he never said to you, but make sure they are over 18? We never discussed age. He never made a comment about age, except for Redacted that one time about her being too old. He never told me to go find underage girls, but at the same time never said, make sure they are over 18. It was never discussed. Okay, alright. Redacted. I'm going to ask you to step outside for a minute, and I will find out if the grand jury has questions. Thank you very much. Witness exits the grand jury room. Witness enters the grand jury room. By Redacted. Miss Redacted, I have to remind you that you are still under oath. There were just 2 follow-up questions. The first one is something that I think you spoke about earlier, but who first asked you to find other girls? Who first asked me to find other girls? Yes. That would be Epstein. Okay, so Jeffrey asked you himself. Jeffrey Epstein himself asked you? Yes. Okay. And then the other question was, are you currently in contact with anyone who works for Mr. Epstein or himself? I don't talk to any of the females that I once brought over there. I haven't been in contact with Epstein for years. He tried contacting me a few times. I haven't contacted him back. I refuse to talk to him. I refuse to talk to any of the girls that were involved. However, I did live with one of the girls in Orlando for a couple of months to a year. I haven't spoken to her in over a year either. Okay. So after, and just so the grand jury has a sense here, we are talking about the 2004 to 2005 period is when you were bringing girls over. That's correct. So since then, to be honest with you, I think it was more 2003, 2004. Okay, my senior year. Okay, but anyhow, it was a couple of years ago. Several years ago. Okay. Redacted. Is there any follow-up questions? Is there any follow-up on either of these points? Yes, redacted. The grand juror. Was it Jeffrey Epstein himself trying to contact you, or redacted? The witness. I don't know if it was him directly. I know that his number showed up on my house phone. I'm assuming because redacted was there. I'm assuming that she is the one who has been trying to contact me in the past years. Epstein never talked directly to me on the phone. Redacted. Any other follow-up? Okay. Thank you, redacted. Thank you for coming. Witness was excused. Certificate of Reporter. I, Paula E. Angelocchi, certified court reporter and notary public, do certify that the transcript is a true and correct transcription of my stenotype notes of the testimony of redacted, taken before the federal grand jury, West Palm Beach, Florida. Paula E. Angelocchi, CSR number 4869, certified court reporter. Okay, I think we're getting near to the end of dataset 7. Oh my god. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. Something's GJ test, 7/19/2006, redacted DAB, 19 years old. Redacted, Loxalachi, I think that's a city in Florida or nearby. 2005, redacted 9th grade, redacted, no outside, 18 or 19. Used to date, redacted. Talked in length, I think. Net. For first time to the night before went to JE. 11:30ish, 10. Do you want to make 200? God.
something my found Jeff Bitehouse? Yeah. But you have to give massage 45 minutes or message 45 minutes at Tuesday. All you have to do get all you have to do get $200. Redacted told redacted, redacted and redacted, sent to bathroom to argue. Case sent out, redacted called Jeffrey on the phone. I accepted something, the plan or something. Jeffrey's assistant answered phone. Redacted had someone to give massage. Lady asked how old I was. She told the lady 18 and want to redacted. It's $200. Didn't care what. Redacted lady trying to verify 18. Yes. Graduated from long time known. Redacted for. Okay, the next morning, redacted and another girl going to mall. He didn't come. Redacted asked something. Yeah, sure for $5 or something. House in Palm Beach. All got out of car, safe at back door. Security guard, he saw us. He asked why we were there. Redacted said Jeffrey. Went to kitchen, waited 15 minutes. Jeffrey Epstein and assistant walked in. Back door. Shook hands with both J.E. and assistant. J.E. chose who was going to go first. J.E. said, how about you? Redacted upstairs. Assistant lady walked me up there. She was something out at this picture. She pulled out a massage table in front of couch, blanket area table, and opened drawer, whole band of lotions, and picked some out. She told me, keep brown panties on, and set, and get undressed or something. Yeah, it matches what we've seen before. This looks like just detective notes. No redacted. Did not told her. I thought a massage. You keep your clothing. Stay in the room. I came in the room. H.I. and Shobeds came back in the room. J.E. old 50-ish. Initially goofy. When pants pull over t-shirt and jeans, thong bra. Hesitant. That's what's going on. I didn't care because I wanted $200. He laid a massage table. He said, grab any free lotions. Started to give him. What HS did, did you something? So told him she was 18. What do you like to do? Redacted something there. Sat on table, 15 to 20 minutes. Conversation. Conversation was another house in New York. He asked if I wanted to make an extra $300. Straddling him. Massage over. But you're not going to give a massage. Can I redact it on you anymore? Redacted said okay. J.E. left and came back. I don't know. Massive redacted. Kind of like something. Grabbed that and laid down back on table. Redacted to give a massage on chest. Used the redacted 10 minutes or so. After a couple of minutes on redacted, redacted said if he did that he would have to pay her extra money if he Redacted didn't tell her that she would not have to close out. Oh Jesus. Is very, it bounces around a lot. He redacted, you got paid, redacted, yes, or redacted. He opened wallet and got $300. He told her to write name and number. After that, left the room. I didn't see him redacted. I was scared to tell. Redacted her body. That's his body. Went down by herself. Left. They didn't do anything, but redacted got $200. I got $300. Okay. I think it was probably because she brought me. What happened? I got $300. I was excited. What did you do with him? Or what did you have to do with him? If you do this, something, laughing, thanks for something. I was going to have some money. My bra on. Oh, sorry. Didn't plan it. If you ever need money. Oh, yeah. Every Saturday. I do not ever go back to house. At school, my best friend, I told her, if you ever want to make $300 to massage redacted, told redacted, redacted. Redacted telling everybody. I confronted her altercation, got into a fight, redacted. Spreading rumors about me. Let me see in your purse. You don't have to lie. I worked out, redacted. I didn't think it was her business, and why would I tell her myself? You don't have to lie. I know what happens. Everything came out. Redacted. I didn't want to tell them what had happened. I redacted. Redacted. Family setting about problems. Family setting about problems? No. The only redacted sometimes. Very weird. Okay, have you ever done redacted? Redacted survey? Yeah. Redacted not anymore. 14th birthday, my dad. I did redacted lots of time. Does that say 250? 250,000 is a joke. Tall, slim, blonde hair. Control call, redacted, redacted. 3:31, 2005. 3:44 p.m. redacted. 4:26 p.m. I'm going tomorrow. Oh, plus, I don't what. The more you do, the more you make. Put a schedule tomorrow for you at redacted. And that's the end of that one. Well, that was very, very difficult to read that. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, West Palm Beach Division, in RE Operation Leap Year. Grand Jury number 07103 WPB, West Palm Beach, Florida, Tuesday, February 6, 2007. Testimony of redacted. Appearance. Redacted, Assistant U.S. Attorney. Redacted, foreperson. Redacted, court reporter. Official reporting service. Redacted. Proceedings. The sworn testimony of redacted was taken before the Federal Grand Jury, West Palm Beach Division, 701 Clematis Street, West Palm Beach County, State of Florida, on the 6th day of February 2007. Redacted, registered merit reporter and notary public, was authorized to and did report the sworn testimony. Thereoupon, redacted. A witness of lawful age, having been first duly sworn by the foreperson, testified on her oath as follows. By Miss Redacted. Special Agent Redacted, please state and spell your name for the record. It is Redacted. Redacted, and I work for the FBI in Palm Beach County. Can you spell your last name, please? I'm sorry, it is Redacted. And I know we have some people in the back having trouble hearing you. You said that you work for the FBI. Can you tell the grand jury what particular group you are employed with? I am with the Violent Crime Squad here in Palm Beach County. I work primarily crimes against children, but have been an agent for the last approximately 10 years. Have you received specialized training in the areas of crime against children? Yes, I have. As part of your employment with the FBI, have you been involved in an investigation of Jeffrey Epstein? Yes, I have. And can you tell us who Jeffrey Epstein is? Jeffrey Epstein is an investment advisor who has a part-time residence in the town of Palm Beach. He has got multiple residences across the country, to include a ranch in New Mexico, an island in the Virgin Isles, and multiple aircrafts, 2 airplanes, and a helicopter to be exact. And where is his primary residence? His primary residence, he has an office in New York, but his primary residence, I believe, is the island. In the Virgin Islands? Yes. He also has a home in New York, correct? Yes. How is it that you started investigating Mr. Epstein? The Palm Beach Police Department in March of 2005 initiated an investigation on Mr. Epstein, involving multiple underage females that had visited Mr. Epstein's residence, and had performed sexual massages or massages for Mr. Epstein of a sexual nature. Mr. Epstein paid the underage females anywhere from $200 to $400. That investigation was around an 8 to 10 month investigation, and at that point we became involved in about July of 2006. And once the case was presented to you by the Palm Beach Police Department, did the FBI open its own investigation? Yes. We initiated our investigation in July 2006. We took a look at focusing in on the underage minors, and in our investigation, we interviewed many of the girls that were underage, and we did an independent investigation issuing grand jury subpoenas, as well as administrative subpoenas getting different documents or financial records, telephone analysis, flight manifests, looking to see if Mr. Epstein engaged in sexual activity with these females. Alright,
And just so the grand jury is clear, were some of the girls who went to Mr. Epstein's house 18 or older?
Yes.
And then there were some that were under the age of 18, correct?
Yes.
And as part of the federal investigation, did you have to investigate what we call the interstate nexus aspect of the case?
Yes.
And can you explain to the grand jury what that is?
We looked at... Mr. Epstein, as I mentioned earlier, has 2 aircrafts, and we focused in on the year 2004. 2005, he took approximately 60 trips to his residence in Palm Beach. The majority of that time focusing in on his assistant's cell phone, which his assistant's name is redacted. We took a look at her cell phone records, and the majority of the times that Mr. Epstein would fly into Palm Beach, Ms. Redacted would contact many of our underage victims either prior to coming into Palm Beach, the day of, the day before, even the day after, and certainly throughout the time that Mr. Epstein was at his residence in Palm Beach. And from the interviews of the girls that have been conducted, what was the subject of those telephone calls? Can you restate the question?
Sure. From the interviews of the girls that have been conducted, what was the subject matter of the telephone calls from Redacted?
Redacted would schedule the underage girls to come and work, perform the massages for Mr. Epstein, so she was responsible. She, as well as another assistant, Redacted, they were his personal assistants who would set up appointments for Mr. Epstein for the girls to come and perform their sexual massages.
All right. Is Redacted also considered a target of this investigation?
Yes, she is.
And I will spell Redacted for the grand jury. The first name is Redacted, and the last name is spelled Redacted. And does Ms. Redacted have a new last name?
Yes, she does. She is married and her name is Redacted.
Redacted. Is Ms. Redacted at least a subject of this investigation? In other words, you are investigating her activity?
We are looking at that.
In addition to those 2 assistants, from the interviews of the girls, is there anyone else who is associated with Mr. Epstein who is thought to be involved in this activity?
Redacted has been referred to as his companion, girlfriend, personal assistant. She, through the testimony of the girls, has engaged in sexual activity with at least 3 of the underage minors.
And Redacted is Redacted. So Ms. Redacted is also at least a subject of the investigation, correct?
Yes, she is.
Now, as part of this investigation, you mentioned that subpoenas were issued on behalf of either the old grand jury or this grand jury. Can you run through what subpoenas have been issued and what documents have been received in response to that?
Sure. We issued a grand jury subpoena to Colonial Bank, and we received financial records on credit card accounts and individuals. We subpoenaed Washington Mutual, and they did a search and were unable to locate records at this time. We issued a grand jury subpoena for Capital One and served that, and that is still unresolved at this time as far as them providing documents to us. We have subpoenaed Chase Credit Card, and we have received documents from Chase. We have subpoenaed 2 businesses that Mr. Epstein has at least partial ownership or associated to, Hyperion Air, Inc. and JEGE, Inc. They were issued subpoenas, and they have provided documentation to us. We have subpoenaed Mr. Redacted, who is a pilot of Mr. Epstein's, and we have received documentation from Mr. Redacted. We have subpoenaed DTG Operations, who is doing business as Dollar Rent-A-Car, and we have received car rental agreements and financial records from that business. We have subpoenaed Royal Palm Beach High School, and have received documentation regarding the students' records. We have subpoenaed 3 or 4 of the victims, Redacted being the first, and we have received a bathing suit from Redacted. We issued a grand jury subpoena to Redacted. We actually have issued Redacted 3 subpoenas, and we are still working on resolving her grand jury material as well as testimony. We have issued Redacted a subpoena. She also is one of our underage victims. We've issued Reimer Employment Agency a grand jury subpoena, and we have received documentation. That is, an employment agency located on the island of Palm Beach. We have subpoenaed the Palm Beach Police Department for their evidence in this case, and we have received that. By the way, that is the only thing that I did not bring with me today. I brought everything else, but it is rather a lot of evidence, so we will probably be bringing that to you another time. We have issued the Clerk of Courts of the state of Florida for grand jury transcripts in the state matter, and we have received those. We have issued the Good Samaritan Hospital for billing records, and we have received those. We have issued a grand jury subpoena to the Dalton School located in New York, and at this time they do not have the records we have requested or could not locate those. We have issued a grand jury subpoena to Extra Touch Flowers, located here in West Palm Beach, and we have received documentation from them. We issued a grand jury subpoena to Bill Hammond, another pilot for Mr. Epstein. We have spoken with him. We have issued a grand jury subpoena to Redacted, another one of Mr. Epstein's pilots, and we have received documentation as well as spoken to him. We have issued a grand jury subpoena to Redacted, who is the property manager currently for Mr. Epstein and his Palm Beach residence, and we have received documentation as well as spoken to him, and we have issued a grand jury subpoena to Redacted, and have received some documentation and are still awaiting a response. Now, you mentioned that you didn't bring with you the evidence that you received from the Palm Beach Police Department, but you did bring with you all of the other evidence that was received in response to the subpoenas. I have. And is that evidence in the 2 boxes that are here in the front? Yes. We will bring all of this back to you when we present the indictment, but would anyone like to look at any of the documentation today? The grand juror. What does the documentation constitute? Basically, the subpoenas. The witness. It is primarily business records, flight manifests, stuff that came from him traveling to and from Palm Beach, credit card records, the businesses as well as the rental agreement, which involves some of the underage girls with the rental cars, and flower shop. You know. A grand juror. Will we have an opportunity later to go through these if we need to? Ms. Redacted. Yes, we will bring them when we present the indictment. Yes, ma'am. A grand juror. If I should hold this for later, let me know. She mentioned the hospital records were subpoenaed. Could more information about why they were subpoenaed be provided at this time? By Ms. Redacted. You can answer that. One of the girls that was underage at the time that is involved with Mr. Epstein has had a baby, and we were interested in wondering if he was the father of that baby, which at this time we do not believe he was. The grand juror. Thank you. Ms. Redacted. A question? The grand juror. Did the flight manifest show passengers on the plane? The witness. Yes, they do. The grand juror. Were any of the passengers the underage girls that were a target of the investigation? The witness. At this time, we have not associated any of these underage girls as being the passengers. The flight manifests. Sometimes the pilot, if they did not know who the passenger was, would put one passenger or one female, one male. These were private planes and they, may not have felt like they can go up and ask, but we don't have any evidence at this time to believe that they were any of our victims. Ms. Redacted. Any follow-up? Any other questions from the grand jury? Yes, ma'am. The records that were subpoenaed from the high school, what were they used for, or why were they instrumental in the investigation? The witness. Those are the girls' school records, and we are just looking at the girls' records. The grand juror. Absenteeism? The witness. Just looking at some of their grades and performances and how they did in school. Ms. Redacted. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, the witness has mentioned a few names of the minors, and that is confidential information. Obviously, everything that you hear within these walls is confidential. By Ms. Redacted. Now, Special Agent Redacted. In addition to issuing the subpoenas, you mentioned that one of the subpoenas was to the Palm Beach Office Department. Did you review any of the evidence that they collected? Yes. And can you, for example, did the Palm Beach Police Department interview any girls? Yes, they did. They interviewed several of the girls, most of the girls. They took tape statements from the girls, either in the form of a tape recorder or through video. And you have reviewed some of those interviews, correct? Yes, we have. And has the FBI performed any interviews? Yes, we have. We have performed interviews of past and current employees of Mr. Epstein, as well as focusing in on the girls that were underage at the time of the sexual activity. We wanted to determine with these girls, again, the sexual activity that took place with Mr. Epstein, as well as how old they were at the time, if they travelled with Mr. Epstein, any gifts that they may have gotten, so we did reach out to several of the underage minors and gather more information from them. And through the FBI's investigation, has the FBI identified additional victims that perhaps the state police officers did not know about? Yes. We are still trying to identify, get first names of girls and going back and looking through school yearbooks, and attempting to try to locate friends of friends. So we are still in the process. When you interview one of the girls, and you ask if any of their friends went, they sometimes will give you other names. So we are in the process of still uncovering victims and reaching out and interviewing additional girls that we believe possibly were underage at the time of this sexual activity. If I could ask you to step outside? The witness was excused in the grand jury room. Questions posed by the grand jury. The witness was recalled to testify before the grand jury. By Ms. Redacted. Special Agent Redacted, one of the grand jurors asked whether there was any evidence of force or coercion. When talking to the girls, they were told that they were going there to perform a massage, possibly model lingerie. They went there sometimes on multiple occasions, and they may start off wearing their clothing, and then he would instruct them. Heavy redaction here. Forest coercion, they were paid $200 to $400 to perform these massages. They are not trained in performing massages. They are not masseuses. But yet, if you ask if they were coerced, they were paid quite a bit of money for 30 to 45 minutes work. Some of the girls, being that they were minors going to his residence, got in over their heads and did not always return or come back. Some of our victims did not come back after, they did go down to their heavy redaction.
And was there one instance where Mr. Epstein actually engaged in vaginal intercourse with a girl against her will?
Another heavy redaction.
A grand juror asked how old Mr. Epstein is.
He was 45 at the time that we are looking at him at that time period.
A grand juror asked if you know the proportion of girls who are underage versus 18 or older.
The majority of the girls that we are looking at are victims. Well, all of our victims that we are looking at were under the age of 18. As far as all of the girls that have been interviewed, the majority definitely were under 18. To give you a number, I would have to go and count, but I would say in the state investigation, there were over 25 girls identified, and more than a majority would have been under the age of 18.
A grand juror asked whether we have obtained Mr. Epstein's DNA, and whether there was any DNA testing of the baby that you spoke of earlier.
No, we have not.
A grand juror asked how Mr. Epstein would make contact with the girls. Was this done via computer, or in some other method?
I'm sorry, redacted. His personal assistant would contact, or on some occasions, redacted would also contact the girls via their cell phone. And we have message pads from the residents that would also indicate the girls calling the home in response to some of those phone calls. So they would call. Redacted would call. The majority of the calls were made by redacted to the girls arranging for these. Can you come at this time? Can you come at that time? Yeah, can you come in at this time? Can you come in at that time?
And is the cellular telephone a facility of interstate commerce?
Yes, it is.
And then one of the grand jurors asked whether the assistants knew that the girls were underage or committed sex acts. Have you interviewed anybody who affirmatively told you that they told redacted their age or what was going on behind closed doors?
No, not at this time. Not this time.
And what leads you to believe that she, for example, redacted, knew or should have known what was going on?
There are so many girls that redacted contacted to give Mr. Epstein massages that have no training in massages, and that redacted was aware that girls were bringing other girls, their friends, to do these massages. Redacted was also making appointments for legitimate massages for Mr. Epstein from legitimate masseuses that would come and give him massages. So the number of girls, their appearances at the time, would lead us to believe that redacted had knowledge that these girls were underage.
All right, thank you very much. Those are all the questions from the grand jury.
The grand juror.
Actually, I have two more, but Ms. Redacted. Okay. What was the actual age range of these girls?
The witness. 14 to,
The grand juror. The other one was... How did Ms. Redacted actually originally get these girls? How are they brought in? How are they, Because you said she called them when he was arriving, but how did these girls come into this in the first place?
A grand juror.
Could you speak louder?
Ms. Redacted. Special Agent Redacted. We just had to request that you speak louder.
A grand juror. 14 and what?
The witness. Our victims were 14 to 17, but we have girls that are 18, we have girls that are 20, we have girls that are in their early 20s. And your question was?
How did she originally get them in the first place?
The witness. We are focusing in on 2004-2005. We have some evidence to show that this activity was taking place even earlier than that, certainly to include 2003, if you look at the message pads. But focusing in on 2004-2005, the chain started with one of our minors, and from that minor who goes to the house, Mr. Epstein tells her, sees that she is maybe not comfortable with doing the massage the way he would like it, and tells her that she could bring other girls to do the massages, and she, in fact, if she brought another girl, she would be paid $200 for just bringing another girl. So there starts the chain. And Mr. Epstein would ask the girls, or redacted, would ask the girls for their phone numbers, so each time, if one of the girls brought a girl and he liked her, he would ask for her phone number. Ask her to leave the phone number, or redacted would get the phone number, and then that girl would maybe bring... Because if you brought somebody, you didn't have to do the massage, but you also got paid for bringing a new person. So not only if you did the massage would you get anywhere from $200 to $400, but if you brought a new female, you would receive $200 or $400. A grand juror. Do you know how she solicited that original minor? The witness. I don't. Well, I know that minor was approached by two individuals, and we have interviewed one of those individuals, who we can connect back to Mr. Epstein 4 years, possibly, prior to this, and stated that his job was actually to drive some of the girls to the residence, and that's pretty much where we start off. Misredacted. Would the grand jury like Special Agent Redacted to maintain the records that we received in response to the subpoenas? A grand juror. Maintain versus what? A grand juror. What is our choice? Misredacted. I don't know that there is. I guess I could maintain them, but I don't believe we have secure storage in here. Would you like Special Agent Redacted to maintain custody? A grand juror. Yes. Misredacted. You should have something to swear her in as a custodian. The witness was sworn in as the custodian of records. It was a female. Misredacted. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the last person for today, so you guys are free to go, and we will see you probably in a couple of weeks. We will be seeing a lot of you. The witness was excused from the grand jury room. The testimony of the witness concluded before the grand jury. Certificate of Reporter. I certify pages 2 through 21 are a true transcript of my shorthand notes of the testimony of Redacted, before the federal grand jury, West Palm Beach, Florida, on the 6th day of February 2007. Redacted Notary Public, Commission DD02822274, expires May 8, 2008. Oh, nearly there. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. United States of America v. Ghislaine Maxwell, Defendant. Proposed Protective Order, 20 CR 330 AJN. Allison J. Nathan, United States District Judge. Whereas the court has ordered production of materials from the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund to the court pursuant to Fed R. Crim P. 17C, the Rule 17 materials, see DKT number 496, whereas those materials are likely to contain information that would 1. Affect the privacy and confidentiality of individuals, 2. Would risk prejudicial pretrial publicity if publicly disseminated, and 3. Are not authorized to be disclosed to the public or disclosed beyond that which is necessary for the trial in this action. Whereas the court has directed the parties to negotiate and submit a proposed protective order, it hereby is ordered 1. Any and all Rule 17 materials disclosed to the government, the defendant, and or to the defendant's criminal defense attorneys, defense counsel, and collectively with the government, the parties, shall be treated as confidential information within the meaning of the protective order, DKT number 36Q7, and shall be subject to the provisions thereof. 2. At the discretion of the court may designate certain materials as highly confidential within the meaning of the protective order, DKT number 36Q11, and subject to the provisions thereof. So ordered. Date New York, November 24th, 2021. Honourable Allison J. Nathan, United States District Judge. Okay, now we're done with that one. Southern States District Court. Southern District of New York, United States of America v. Jeffrey Epstein, Defendant. Protective Order, 19 CR 490 RMB. Richard M. Berman, United States District Judge. Whereas the government intends to produce to Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, certain documents and materials that 1. Affect the privacy and confidentiality of individuals, 2. Would impede, if prematurely disclosed, the government's ongoing investigation of uncharted individuals, 3. Would risk prejudicial pretrial publicity if publicly disseminated, and 4. Is not authorized to be disclosed to the public or disclosed beyond that which is necessary for the defense of this action, and other materials pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 16, Rule 16, and pursuant to any other disclosure obligations, collectively the discovery, which contains sensitive, confidential, or personal identifying information. Whereas the government seeks to protect sensitive, confidential, or personal identifying information contained in the materials it produces consistent with Rule 16 or other disclosure objections. E. May be shown to, but not disseminated to, or provided copies of to, prospective witnesses and their counsel, collectively potential witnesses, to the extent deemed necessary by defense counsel, for trial preparation. To the extent the discovery is disclosed to defense staff, defense experts or advisors, other authorized persons or potential witnesses, defense counsel shall instruct such individuals of the terms of this order, and that such individuals are bound by this order. To the extent that discovery is disseminated to defense staff, defense experts or advisors, or other authorized persons, defense counsel shall encrypt and or password protect the discovery.
The provisions of this paragraph do not apply to communications exclusively between and among defense counsel. The government, the defendant, defense counsel, defense staff, defense experts, advisors, potential witnesses, and other authorized persons are prohibited from posting or causing to be posted any of the discovery or information contained in the discovery on the internet, including any social media website. 4. The government, other than in the discharge of their professional obligations in this matter, defense counsel, defense staff, defense experts, advisors, potential witnesses, and other authorized persons are precluded from publicly other identifying designation are deemed confidential information. 7. Confidential information may contain personal identification information of specific individuals who are not parties to this action, and other confidential information, as well as information that identifies or can lead to the identification of witnesses in this matter. The government's designation of material as confidential information will be controlling absent contrary order of the court. 8. Confidential information disclosed to the defendant or defense counsel, respectively, during the course of proceedings in this action. A. Shall be used by the defendant or his counsel only for the purposes of the defense of this action. B. Shall be maintained in a safe and secure manner solely by defense counsel. C. Shall be reviewed by the defendant solely in the presence of defense counsel. D. Shall not be possessed outside the presence of defense counsel or maintained by the defendant. E. May be disclosed only by defense counsel and only to designated persons. F. May be shown to, but not disseminated to, or provided copies of to potential witnesses to the extent deemed. Okay, these pages are in the wrong order again. Okay, I'll do this bit then. Okay, C. Shall not be possessed outside the presence of defense counsel or maintained by the defendant. D. Shall be made available for inspection by defense counsel and the defendant under the protection of law enforcement officers or employees. And E. Shall not be copied or otherwise duplicated by defense counsel or the defendant during such inspections. 11. The defendant and defense counsel shall provide a copy of this order to designated persons to whom they disclose confidential information or highly confidential information. Prior to disclosure of such information to designated persons, terms of this order by signing a copy hereof and stating that they agree to be bound by the terms herein, and providing such copy to the defendant's counsel. However, the defendant and his or her respective counsel need not obtain signatures from any member of the defense team, i.e. attorneys, experts, consultants, paralegals, investigators, support personnel, and secretarial staff involved in the reproduction of the defendants in this case, all of whom are nonetheless bound by this protective order. 12. Except for discovery that has been made part of the record of this case, defense counsel shall return to the government or securely destroy or delete all discovery. 13. The foregoing provisions shall remain in effect unless and until either A. The government and defense counsel mutually agree otherwise, or B. This order is modified by further order of the court. So ordered. Date, July 25th, 2019, New York, New York. Honorable Richard M. Berman, United States District Judge. And agreed and consented to, dated July 24th, 2019, New York, New York. Was that a cat? No, it was not. New York. Jeffrey S. Berman, United States Attorney, Southern District of New York. By S. Redacted, Assistant United States Attorneys. Dated July 25th, 2019, New York, New York. Jeffrey Epstein. By the signature. Martin Weinberg-esque. Reed Weingarten-esque. Counsel for Jeffrey Epstein. And that's it for that. How many files have we got? Okay, we've got 11 pages left, and I'm done with dataset 7. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. United States of America v. Ghislaine Maxwell, Defendant. Protective Order 20 CR 330 AJM. Alison J. Nathan, United States District Judge. Whereas the government intends to produce to Ghislaine Maxwell, the defendant, certain documents and materials that 1. Affect the privacy and confidentiality of individuals, 2. Would impede, if prematurely disclosed, the government's ongoing investigation, 3. Would risk prejudicial pre-trial publicity if publicly disseminated, and 4. Is not authorized to be disclosed to the public or disclosed beyond that which is necessary for the defense of this action, and other materials pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 16, Rule 16, and pursuant to any other disclosure obligations, collectively the discovery, which contains sensitive, confidential, or personal identifying information.
Whereas the government seeks to protect sensitive, confidential, or personal identifying information contained in the materials it produces, consistent with Rule 16 or other disclosure obligations. Whereas the government has applied for the entry of this order, it hereby is ordered 1. The discovery disclosed to the defendant, and or to the defendant's criminal defense attorneys, defense counsel, during the course of proceedings in this action. A. Shall be used by the defendant or his or her defense counsel solely for purposes of the defense of this criminal action, and not for any civil proceeding or any purpose other than the defense of this action. B. Shall not be copied or otherwise recorded or transmitted by the defendant, except to defense counsel, or except as necessary for the defendant to take notes, which shall not be further transmitted to anyone other than defense counsel. C. Shall not be disclosed or distributed in any form by the defendant or her counsel except as set forth in paragraph 1d below. D. May be disclosed only by defense counsel and only to the following persons. Designated persons. 1. Investigative, secretarial, clerical, or paralegal personnel employed full-time, part-time, or as independent contractors by the defendant's counsel, defense staff. 2. Any expert or potential expert, legal advisor, consultant, or any other individual retained or employed by the defendant and defense counsel for the purpose of assisting in the defense of this case, defense experts and advisors. 3. Such other persons as hereafter may be authorized by order of the court, other authorized persons. E. May be provided to prospective witnesses and their counsel, collectively, potential defense witnesses, to the extent deemed necessary by defense counsel for trial preparation. To the extent discovery materials are disclosed to potential defense witnesses, they agree that any such materials will not be further copied, distributed, or otherwise transmitted to individuals other than the recipient potential defense witnesses. The defendant and defense counsel shall provide a copy of this order to any designated persons to whom they disclose discovery materials. Prior to disclosure of discovery materials to designated persons, any such designated person shall agree to be subject to the terms of this order by signing a copy hereof, and stating that they agree to be bound by the terms herein, and providing such copy to defense counsel. All such acknowledgments shall be retained by defense counsel, and shall be subject to in-camera review by the court, if good cause for review is demonstrated. The defendant and her counsel need not obtain signatures from any member of the defense team, i.e. attorneys, experts, consultants, paralegals, investigators, support personnel, and secretarial staff involved in the representation of the defendants in this case, all of whom are nonetheless bound by this protective order. 3. To the extent that the discovery is disseminated to defense experts and advisors, other authorized persons, or potential defense witnesses, via means other than electronic mail, defense counsel shall encrypt and or password protect the discovery. 4. The government, the defendant, defense counsel, defense staff, defense experts and advisors, potential defense witnesses and their counsel, and other authorized persons are prohibited from posting or causing to be posted any of the discovery or information contained in the discovery on the internet, including any social media website or other publicly available medium. 5. The government, other than in the discharge of their professional obligations in this matter, the defendant, defense counsel, defense staff, defense experts, advisors, potential defense witnesses and their counsel, and other authorized persons are strictly prohibited from publicly disclosing or disseminating the identity of any victims or witnesses referenced in the discovery. This order does not prohibit defense counsel or defense staff from referencing the identities of individuals they believe may be relevant to the defense to potential defense witnesses and their counsel during the course of the investigation and preparation of the defense case at trial. Any potential defense witnesses and their counsel who are provided identifying information by defense counsel or defense staff are prohibited from further disclosing or disseminating such identifying information. This order does not prohibit defense counsel from publicly referencing individuals who are spoken by name on the public record in this case. 6. The defendant, defense counsel, defense staff, defense experts, advisors, potential defense witnesses, and other authorized persons are prohibited from filing publicly as an attachment to a filing or excerpted within a filing the identity of any victims or witnesses referenced in the discovery who have not spoken by name on the public record in this case unless authorized by the government in writing or by order of the court. Any such filings must be filed under seal unless authorized by the government in writing or by order of the court. 7. Copies of discovery or other materials produced by the government in this action bearing confidential stamps, or designated as confidential as described below, and or electronic discovery materials designated as confidential by the government, including such materials marked as confidential either on the documents or materials themselves, or designated as confidential in a folder or document title, are deemed confidential information. The government shall clearly mark all pages or electronic materials containing confidential information, or folder or document titles such as necessary, with confidential designations.
8. Confidential information may contain personal identification information of victims, witnesses, or other specific individuals who are not parties to this action, and other confidential information, as well as information that identifies or could lead to the identification of witnesses in this matter. The identification of an alleged victim or witness who has identified herself or himself publicly as such on the record in this case shall not be treated as confidential information. 9. Defense counsel may at any time notify the government that defense counsel does not occur in the designation of documents or other materials as confidential information. If the government does not agree to de-designate such documents or materials, defense counsel may thereafter move the court for an order de-designating such documents or materials. The government's designation of such documents and materials as confidential information will be controlling absent contrary order of the court. 10. Confidential information disclosed to the defendant or defense counsel, respectively, during the course of proceedings in this action. A. Shall be used by the defendant or her defense counsel solely for the purposes of the defense or this criminal action and not for any civil proceeding or any purpose other than the defense of this action. B. Shall be maintained in a safe and secure manner. C. Shall be reviewed and possessed by the defendant in hard copy solely in the presence of defense counsel. D. Shall be possessed in electronic format only by defense counsel and by appropriate officials of the Bureau of Prisons, BOP, who shall provide the defendant with electronic access to the discovery, including confidential information, consistent with the rules and regulations of the BOP, for the defendant's review. E. Shall be reviewed by the defendant solely in the presence of defense counsel or when provided access to discovery materials in electronic format by BOP officials. F. May be disclosed only by defense counsel and only to designated persons. G. May be shown to, either in person, by video conference, or via a read-only document review platform, but not disseminated to or provided copies of to potential defense witnesses, to the extent deemed necessary by defense counsel, for trial preparation, and after such individuals have read and signed this order, acknowledging that such individuals are bound by this order. 11. Copies of discovery or other materials produced by the government in this action, bearing highly confidential stamps or otherwise specifically designated as highly confidential, and/or electronic discovery materials designated as highly confidential by the government, including such materials marked as highly confidential, either on the documents or materials themselves, or designated as highly confidential in an index, folder title, or document title, are deemed highly confidential information. To the extent any highly confidential information is physically produced to the defendant and defense counsel, rather than being made available to the defendant and defense counsel for on-site review, the government shall clearly mark all such pages or electronic materials containing highly confidential information with highly confidential stamps on the documents or materials themselves. 12. Highly confidential information contains nude, partially nude, or otherwise sexualized images, videos, or other depictions of individuals. 13. Defense counsel may at any time notify the government that defense counsel does not concur in the designation of documents or other materials as highly confidential information. If the government does not agree to de-designate such documents or materials, defense counsel may thereafter move the court for an order de-designating such documents or materials. The government's designation of such documents and materials as highly confidential information will be controlling absent contrary order of the court. 14. Highly confidential information disclosed to defense counsel during the course of proceedings in this action. A. Shall be used by the defendant or her defense counsel solely for purposes of the defense of this criminal action, and not for any civil proceedings or any purpose other than the defense of this action. B. Shall not be disseminated, transmitted, or otherwise copied and provided to defense counsel or the defendant. C. Shall be reviewed by the defendant solely in the presence of defense counsel. D. Shall not be possessed outside the presence of defense counsel or maintained by the defendant. E. Shall be made available for inspection by defense counsel and the defendant under the protection of law enforcement officers or employees. And F. Shall not be copied or otherwise duplicated by defense counsel or the defendant during such inspections. 15. The defendant, defense counsel, defense staff, defense experts and advisors, potential defense witnesses, and other authorized persons are prohibited from filing publicly as an attachment to a filing or excerpted within a filing any confidential information or highly confidential information referenced in the discovery, unless authorized by the government in writing by order of the court, or by order of the court. Any such filings must be filed under seal unless authorized by the government in writing or by order of the court. 16. The provisions of this order shall not be construed as preventing disclosure of any information, with the exception of victim or witness identifying information that is publicly available or obtained by the defendant or her defense counsel from a source other than the government. 17. Except for discovery that has been made part of the record of this case, defense counsel shall return to the government or securely destroy or delete all discovery, including but not limited to confidential information, within 30 days of the expiration of the period for direct appeal from any verdict in the above captioned case. The period of direct appeal from any order dismissing any of the charges in the above captioned case, the expiration of the period for a petition pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 2255, any period of time required by the federal or state ethics rules applicable to any attorney of record in this case, or the granting of any motion made on behalf of the government dismissing any charges in the above captioned case, whichever date is later. 18. The foregoing provisions shall remain in effect unless and until either A. the government and defence counsel mutually agrees in writing otherwise, or B. this order is modified by a further order of the court. 19. The government and defence counsel agree to meet and confer in advance of any hearings or trial to discuss and agree to any modifications necessary for the presentation of evidence at those proceedings. In the absence of agreement, defence counsel may make an appropriate application to the court for any such modifications. So ordered. Date 30th July 2020, New York, New York. Honourable Alison J. Nathan, United States District Judge. And that is it for dataset 7. Oh, God damn, that was a mouthful going through that. Well, dataset 8 will not be started tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be our end-of-month community call on the Discord. So if you're not on the Discord, get on the Discord. Join the event. Check the times, because I'm not going to say a time on here just because we all work in different time zones and my audience is very international. But if you have a look at the event, you'll see the exact time in your time when it's going to start. And, we're going to do that. We're going to have fun. We're going to get drunk. We're going to, check on the state of the channel and check everyone's doing all right. And it's a great bit of fun. And also, as per usual, we have an end of month special as well. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I know it's going to be good. So I hope to see all of you there. Aaron, you're there? Brilliant. Glad to see you. We're like security guard stories and other sorts of stories. We like to swap those around. So if we get Chrysler on board, he has some funny stories from prison guard duties, shall we say? And some of them are quite funny. Anyways, wow, my throat is run ragged. I hope I'm able to record tomorrow, and I have a few other things I need to do as well. So, ladies and gents, thank you very much. Hope to see you tomorrow. Or if not tomorrow, I hope to see you on the next stream where we start data set 8. And looking at it is probably going to be a big one. I hope it's not going to be too hard to read either. So, regardless, I'll see you then. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye for now.